Bahasham Regag Qadash, the water, YAHAWAH, the water, YAHAWAH, Bahasham YAHAWASHI, Shalaki YAHAWAH, for my sins as I cry. Baba Kashai YAHAWAH, for your mercy every time. Baba Kashai YAHAWAH, for a all the time. The water YAHAWAH, for the Akim that you supply. The water YAHAWAH, for the aqua that comply. Call YAHAWAH, Bahasham YAHAWASHI, Bahasham Qadash Rawhacca, water YAHAWAH, for your mercy all the time. Shalom, shalom, shalom. It's your brother, Obadiah Yahweh Canaanite, and we are here this evening with a very interesting and thought-provoking lesson that YAHAWASHI has welled up in my spirit to talk about. And we're going to touch on a couple of different areas of interest that Yahweh has brought to my attention through YAHAWASHI and the angels in reference to, just kind to get some context lined up in lieu of and in reference to some of the things that we are probably very knowledgeable of in terms of the elect, the selected, elected, and also that we could be very much, in controversy to some degree about. But for the most part, I believe that this will be very enlightening, informative, and hopefully you'll find it to be edifying and to the point in terms of what we should be looking at in terms of the spiritual mature perspective from a foundational a platform and understanding. One of the things that I can say is that's a very important thing that we should be looking to adhere to. But first and foremost, let's get to the point. We want to give our salutations to the men who have been diligently bringing this truth in the most accurate fashion as spiritually possible, which would be the apostles of Great Millstone. I have been tuned in and watching them from a good period of time. I would say towards the end of 2007, going into all of 2008 and forward. And, at some point through the study over a period of years, through various other, I would say, belief systems, I've been introduced to the truth through the men of Great Millstone in terms of their accuracy and their stick-to-itness in terms of the sacredness of the scriptures and the sacredness of the name of Yahweh Bahasham YAHAWASHI. So I give my salutations to them because they are definitely worthy of that affirmation, as is the elders, the bishops, and the men of the Lord who put their lives on the line on a daily basis to address and present the truth in the best fashion that's possible. So we got that out the way, and we're going to be talking about something that I think is important, and it has to do with the title of the scripture. Okay, Yahweh has predetermined the process of hypnotized Hellenization on this whole world prophetic system timeline to the end. I know it's a little bit a little long there, but that's what it is. YAHAWASHI has predetermined the process of hypnotized Hellenization on the whole world system, the whole world prophetic system timeline to this end that we're going to at this particular point. And it's important that we are going to bring forth credentials and information that is going to be supportive of those factors in that information. And that's going to be extremely important in reference to where we're going at this present time when it comes to presenting the truth that the Father has for us to look into from the blessings and mercy and grace of YAHAWASHI. And what we want to make sure that we are doing is that we are being thorough and accurate in terms of bringing forth information that is valid and detailed to the point where we get a full understanding. And hopefully, if anyone's on the comment board and they have any questions, chime in. If I can get to them, I will. But this is going to be quite a interesting and lengthy lesson. It's not going to take a few minutes. It's going to take some time to get it done. But we are going to tap into the commentary first, as we always do, to start off with everything. And that's just appropriate for us to do so. You know, I'm going to hit a few things in terms of some context of when I talk about the distribution of information and the distribution of what we consider to be the information that we have to translate in our captivity and exile while we're here. Okay, because that's what's going to be important to emphasize these portions of it as well. Want to give a little bit of a definition that we pulled because we needed to, and it's the right thing to do. Let me get my glasses on here for a minute. Okay. And I've went to the Google, Wikipedia, ChatGPT, whatever you want to call these different areas. And the reason why I want to emphasize and talk to some of these areas, I think it's important to note that the whole world has been the whole world system and the functioning economic platforms, as well as all four dynasties. When you talk about we're talking about economics, which will be on the financial side. We're talking about education. When we talk about where the learning capacities and information have come from. We talk about the religious platform in terms of what people believe in terms of their belief systems. And then, of course, what that fourth one would be, I just lost train of thought for a second. Okay, so I said, I said education, finance, religion, and political. Okay, there you go, the political side of the situation. Those four dynasties are going to, are affected by what we're addressing in terms of where things got started, how they got started, how we're operating within these systems currently now, and how they penetrate and perpetuate information on a global basis. Hellenization, right? Now, the reason why we have to talk about, the fact that there was a hypnotized Hellenization process that the Father put forth in this prophetic timeline around the world is simply because you have to look at it this way. Everything that we are operating in this fallen state currently right now in the world system has been I would just say permeated, has been covered, has been flavored with a Hellenization process that we know to some degree was pulled out and indoctrinated from the ancient, I would say from the ancient times of the various kingdoms that were in play, that the Father put in place from the time of the confusion of the languages. I'm going to touch on that for a minute, but I have something that I want to read that's going to, I'm going to get to that portion to where we can dial in. This is important because, see, all of this is very much historical, but it's biblical history as well, because everything is really biblical history if you really want to look at it. It's just how individuals who present it and some and most who spin it are spinning it in a fashion that was usually fit their narratives and their agendas. But let me read this for a minute in terms of Hellenization, because, see, what we come across a lot is the fact that when the brothers are on the highways and byways, and then just in general, when you on the unicorn of information networks, they always go into these pseudo science and pseudo debate processes between explaining the truth in the word in terms of the scriptures, and then the understanding and the derivatives of the people who believe that they have the right path and the right way, but the portions of their belief and their truth that they say is the right way, what are the origins of it in terms of how it comes out, and not only the origins, but the collection of categories that they actually believe that hold all of the value of their understanding and their expressions that they're debating. You know, you get people debating the scriptures, where I've always Most High has always had me say that you can't debate what you didn't create. Okay, so you did not create the scriptures. The Most High, Shalaki. My garment was a little bit bothering me there a bit. Get it taken care of. Okay, there we go. You didn't create the scriptures, so you didn't create, so you can't debate. And that's very true. But anyway, I want to explain something in reference to something with it. What's Hellenization? Okay, because that's an important factor, because that seems to be one of the catalysts of conversations that seem to go back and forth when it comes to the scriptures and how the scriptures are laid in terms of explained, and the definitions of the process when the scriptures are laid about the Hebrew Israelites, about Gentiles, about strangers, about individuals that hear this truth and believe that they should be included just because they have heard it and they feel like it sounds good to them. It's something that they feel like they can embrace in their heart. They are created by the Most High, but are they created for the covenants? And this doesn't seem to pan out for them, but they seem to embrace what is true. Now, why wouldn't you? You would definitely want to embrace something that is favorable towards your eternal existence, potentially, and salvation. So clearly they would be in line to do that. But let me read this. I got a few that I need to cover before we break into scriptures and go through the line of scriptures, the precepts and scriptures we have. It's going to take some time. Hellenization is the historical process of non-Greek people adopting or being forced to adopt the language, culture, art, and customs of ancient Greece. Okay, again, Hellenization. Okay, take notes, people, if you are not privy to this information, because this could help you with your religious practitioner belief systems in terms of what foundations you stand on, in terms of what you believe that is your method of salvation to be gathered back to the Creator, and what your position and your space in place would be gathered back to the Creator. So we need to know these particular things. Hellenization is the historical process of the non-Greek people adopting or being forced to adopt the language, culture, art, and customs of ancient Greece. Someone or something that is Hellenized has become Greek in outlook, speech, or lifestyle. This culture spread accurately, rapidly across the Middle East, Egypt, and parts of Asia after the conquest of Alexander the Great, so to speak, in the 14th century BCE. Okay, now the key features of Hellenization: language. Greek became a common language for the trade, government, and daily life across a huge empire, which is also duplicated at this particular time here in this particular country, because you heard people say, Greco-Roman, or do when in Rome, do as the Romans do, so to speak. So they're kind of referencing the situation. Okay, cities. Rulers built Greek-style cities with theaters, gymnasiums, and public meeting places. Very much you can see in line with what we have now. Mixing. Local religions and traditions often blend with Greek ideas rather than disappearing completely. See, so they were incorporating paganistic practices within the truth of the real belief system that is of YAHAWASHI. Resistance. Some groups welcomed the new ideas while others fought hard to keep their original traditions, such as the Israelites. They called them Jewish. There was no ish at the time. The Jews, or the tribes, and during the Maccabean revolt. And we're going to go into that when we talk about first and second Maccabees a little bit. Now, how Hellenization affected ancient Judea and the Bible, the impact of Hellenization on art and architecture. Okay, so we needed to get an understanding of these particular factors, because this world system is set up in that process where it's led many in the world system to believe that that the Greco-Roman Empire was the beginning of civilization, which is not the case at all. But that's what was traditionally put in place to believe. And so what we need to understand here is that we need to understand how did our scriptures get into the fashion of the language and the fashion and direction given through the Greek and Latin interpretations or translations. How did that become something that we need to look at as far as why we have people who are debating the truth in the scriptures in terms of who's translating what, is it translated, in what way it's translated, and is the translation true to form in reference to the truth that you know of and that you follow and worship. So we're going to delve into that information. Now, let me say this much. The story of translating the Torah for King Ptolemy is not found in the books of Maccabees. Instead, the legend of 72 elders translating the Torah for King Ptolemy II of Philadelphus comes from the ancient letter of Aristeas, Aristeas, Aristeas. Some rabbinic sources mention a similar group of 5 sages, but none named 4 Hebrews in Maccabees. Okay, now it says here the key details of the legend. The ruler, King Ptolemy of Philadelphus of Egypt, commissioned the translation of the Library of Alexandria. Okay, so what did he commission? The translators, the tradition states 72 elders, 6 from each of the 12 tribes of Israel, were sent by the high priest Eleazar in Jerusalem, right? The result, this Greek translation of the Hebrew Bible became known as the Septuagint. See, so you see, this is when they started to translate the Hebrew Bible into the Septuagint. The setting accounts like the letter of Aristeas describes the scholars working in Alexandria rather than an event recorded in the canonical or apocryphal Maccabean text. Okay, so we can explore the background of the translations from the Septuagint, and we can check that information out in that article in, of course, Wikipedia, as well as the letter of Aristeas. Okay, so what we're trying to make sure that we understand here is that at some point there were 72 scribes from the 12 tribes of Israel that King Ptolemy II of Philadelphus in Egypt had them translate. Now, I found in the book of Maccabees where, I'll bring out the precepts as well. Ptolemy had these Hebrews convert the Hebrew Bible into the Septuagint, a Greek and Latin language, so that individuals can understand it from that perspective, because Paul did use it. But see, there's a two-edged sword with this situation. One side of the sword, of course, is the fact that when they translated it from the Hebrew, the Paleo-Hebrew, into the Septuagint, the Greek and Latin Septuagint, they incorporated paganistic practices and languages and names. Case in point, i.e. Jesus Christ, and various other names that come into a Greek and Latin format in terms of the presentation. And that's why you started seeing these names appear, and people claiming as though they are the original names, because the Septuagint at about 1,000 years ago in terms of its translation is the oldest Greek and Latin translation, but it's not the oldest translation in reference to the Paleo-Hebrew and the original Hebrew. Okay, so we needed to make sure that we understood that, because at some point we had a lot of things that were not understood in that fashion. Now, I want to tap on the Greco-Roman Empire influence was copied from the Etruscans, and the Phoenicians and the Canaanite people. Okay, which is very important. So, because you can see the influences of the Etruscans and the Canaanites and the Phoenicians in the architecture, the literature, in various different forms. Okay, so when it comes to, did the Greco-Roman Empire use those particular styles, attributes, and information from those areas? Well, it says yes. The Greco-Roman world built its foundation on older civilizations. You see, so they're not the oldest ones. Rome borrowed heavily from the ancient Greeks and the neighboring Etruscans, adopting their art, engineering, and political ideas and adapting them into a new system. The Etruscans, early Rome learned urban planning, hydraulic engineering, and arc construction from the Etruscans' neighbors in northern Italy. Now you got to understand, these Etruscans and people that we're talking about, these were melanated people. A lot of them were Israelites, but they claimed to be Moors. The Moors were 700 years of rulership over in Rome and Italy, in that area they call Europe. Okay, now the Greeks, Romans, architecture, religion, literature, and philosophy came directly from Greek colonies, and later the conquest of Greece. The alphabet, the Latin alphabet, evolved from Greek and Phoenician writing systems via the Etruscans and the Canaanites, because the Canaanites brought forth the alphabet that we are, the alphabet, and also the arithmetic process we learned from the areas of Egypt and from the Canaanites in that area. Science and math. Roman civil engineering relied on older Mediterranean physics, geometry, and mapping discoveries. Okay, so you can see that they adopted their culture vultures. The Romans are the Idumeans are the Edomites, and they are definitely culture vultures. This is what they do. They go ahead and they pull from other cultures, and then they claim the identity and origin of those other cultures as being theirs. And we see this currently today when it comes to how the self-proclaimed superior people who claim to be white, which is not who they are, because no one's white and no one's black, but they claim that they are the originators of many things, as they have infiltrated themselves around the entire world system with this Greco-Roman empire, the entire strategy of their lifestyles and their world rule and their world dominant rule persuasions. Okay, now I want to read something about an Israelite Hebrew interpreter. Now, this Israelite Hebrew interpreter, I believe, was a small hat. His name was Jesus ben Sira. He translated the Paleo-Hebrew language into the Greek language for the Septuagint. Now, what I want to break out in here, which is important to understand, that's why I'm bringing you these facts, because you need to have these facts. And it says here, yes, in the biblical apocrypha, the prologue to the wisdom of Sirach, and I'm going to pull that up, also called Ecclesiastes, explicitly mentions that the book was originally written in the Hebrew by the author Jesus ben Sira, and then translated into Greek by his grandson. You see what I'm saying? So, but they put Jesus ben Sira because, of course, they're using that Greek language mixed with a little bit of modern Hebrew. And it says here, the grandson writes in the prologue about his work translating the Hebrew text for Greek-speaking readers. Okay? The original language, he notes that his grandfather, Jesus, gained great familiarity with the law and the prophets and the other books of our ancestors and wrote a book embodying them in Hebrew. So, of course, they put that name Jesus in there. We know that they did that. Okay? The need for translation. He explained that he traveled to Egypt in the 38th year of King Xerxes, approximately 132 BC, and found an interpretive work of no small importance, prompting him to dedicate time and effort to translate the book into Greek for those living outside of Judea who wish to learn wisdom. You hear that? So this is what happened. This particular individual, right? He said the need for translation. He explained that he traveled to Egypt in the 38th year of King Xerxes, approximately 132 BC, and found an interpretive work of no small importance, because it was big time, prompting him to dedicate time and effort to translate the book into Greek for those living outside of Judea who wish to learn. All right, so this is what was translated into the into Septuagint. So of course you could do a more examined historical context of it, and you would be good to find that out, that the apocryphal books that were originally written in Hebrew, along with how the canon was decided for the Old Testament. So you have a lot of that already in terms of the documentation that I'm pulling to show you exactly what happened. So then, okay, why is this important? How did this all come about? I know people might be saying, well, why are you reading all this? What does this mean to us? Well, it has a great deal of meaning to you, mainly because you have to understand the books that we have now. Originally they were Hebrew, okay, and because they were originally Hebrew, it means a lot in terms of getting to the foundational truth of what we need to understand. A lot of times, when the men of the Lord are out there, or various individuals are out there, and they're teaching and preaching and they're bringing the scriptures out, you notice that they will invoke at times in the beginning the sacred name. They will say Yahawah and also YAHAWASHI, the Son, and they will break down YAHAWAH, YAHAWASHI, and then others, organizations and camps that are out there, they will somewhat say YAHAWASHI, Shimi Hamashiach, or something like that. They're flirting around with the accuracy of the truth, but they're not completely in the truth in terms of foundationally staying complete and accurate. So they get into conversations with scripture several feet off the ground and start quoting the captivity language, byword derivative of the Savior's name, Yahawashi's name, and call him Yeshua, or or call Father Yahweh, or Yeshua, or or Jesus, or Christ, and stuff like that. Now, that creates a level of confusion for those that are trying to teach foundational truth, because if you were to continue to speak directly and communicate in Hebrew, Paleo-Hebrew, clearly they wouldn't understand, because we're in the land of our captivity, where the scripture says that you will remember yourselves in the land of your captivity. Now, it should not be that much of a task or a problem for us to teach it primarily on the heavier side, the more higher percentage side of the Paleo-Hebrew, because we enforce and we bring forward the understanding in a strong measure that we should be giving the respect to the sacred name of the Father, which is his real name, Yahweh, and the sacred name of the Son, which his real name is YAHAWASHI. If we're pushing that, even in this land of our captivity, we should be pushing that first. I'm not saying that we're not supposed to speak, as I'm speaking now, in the language of my captivity, but again, several of us, we also have additional languages that we do speak, myself as well. And some of those languages are incorporated, of course, with the colonization process that has happened in terms of the dialect and the language and that we speak. And a lot of it, like for instance, my background is, as you can see, my tribe is the tribe of Reuben. All right, so biblically speaking, that would make it mean in a colonization fashion. My father was of the tribe of Reuben, but the colonized tribe of the Seminole Indians. All right, my mother on the Lumbee side would be of the tribe of Gad. But there is a language now on the Seminole side of the colonized process that happened to my father and my father's father and his father. They would speak a language called Muskogee and Creek and Muskogee. Now I have formations and understandings in that language as well. I'm about, I would say, 50% fluid in that language because I haven't been doing it a lot because I have not many to converse with in reference to the language. Most of my family members and those that were a part of the family that retained the language, most have transitioned home to the Father in the spirit world, and some are not even in this area of the country for me to be speaking to them. It'd be nice and it'd be good, but again, that gives me a pretty much like a third language. Speaking the language of the captivity here, which would be, of course, this bastardized English language, which they call a European language, a Latin, Greek mix, and then, of course, the learning the Paleo-Hebrew and trying to get back to the original language that we had, which was the first language that was permitted and offered to the world and on the earth. So some of us have multiple languages. A lot of my brothers in the Northern Kingdom, they speak a form of Espanol, but again, that's a particular colonized influence on their language. The Taino Indians that would be part of the tribe of Ephraim, they had a language, as well as the Ishkarites, they had a language prior to colonization that was more in line with the same like my language, which had derivatives of Paleo-Hebrew in the language. Even in the language that I speak in terms of the Seminole language, like if I were to speak in terms of a woman or a wife will be, if I said Ateta Chippewa, okay, Ateta Chippewa, I'm speaking, I have a wife, right? But see, Ateta Chippewa, right? If someone who spoke that language would understand what that meant, okay, because they know that Ate, I have a wife, right? Chippewa would be for wife. Anyway, not to digress. What I'm saying to you is that there are many languages in the captivity that many of us speak of the 12 tribes of Israel who are still here in our exile. And it's not a problem to learn to translate and communicate and transliterate through your language, even if you have multiple languages you speak, to bring the truth out. But it's good to be foundational, and you should stay foundational in terms of your presentation of the truth, is where I'm going with this. So, and I understand, when the apostles are breaking things down, and they have to break it down in our language of captivity, and also they have to break it down in this language of the exile to reach the elect, because our language in our culture has been stripped from us by Bahasham YAHAWASHI in reference to the cleansing and purification process that's going to go forward all the way through to the end in prophecy, okay, the prophetic timeline. So I'm not saying that we shouldn't be speaking the language of our captivity, because we're going to. We're going to have to. Just like on my garment here, this is the written Paleo Hebrew. On this side over here you have YAHAWAH, and on this side over here you have YAHAWASHI. So again, we're going to be introduced and speaking to the selected elected, because that's primarily who we're supposed to be talking to, and we're going to be presenting the truth to them through the language of our captivity. But I'm breaking down the Hellenization process, which has been formulated throughout the entire world system, and it will be in play and stay in play until the end, until the Father sends YAHAWASHI and the angels back to take this place under complete control for eternity, and that's the way it's going to be. So, knowing that, we need to understand where we are and how these things came about. Now, I know that a lot of times we speak about things, and what we get from the Spirit sometimes translates through the Scriptures very, very accurately and in detail. Sometimes the information falls on the line of the parabolic, in terms of the metaphor, idioms, and figures of speech. If you don't know what parabolic means, when you heard that YAHAWASHI, who they even called Jesus, says he spoke in parables, meaning sort of a riddle or something that needs to be clue derivative found out. That's what the Father has done in his covert measure of bringing things forward for us to operate under. We have to be covertish in terms of understanding and translating and dissecting the Scriptures, so that we know how to get to the truth. Now, I'm going to bring a little bit of information, and then I'm going to delve into the Scriptures here and back up everything I'm saying here, because it's important that we do so. All right. Now, first and foremost, I'm hitting a few different flavors of different categories and topics, so that you can understand where we're going. Okay. Now, I want to say this first in reference to, I talked a lot about how the languages became so apparent in terms of what we speak and who speaks what, and the dominance of the Greco-Roman Empire that was predestined to be used around the entire world. You notice that if you were a pilot and you were to fly anywhere around the world, why is it mandatory that you have to learn to speak? But the pilots that fly out of the Americas and the locations and countries that are attached to the hip of America, they don't have to seemingly learn the languages of the other countries around the world. Like, so-called American pilots don't have to learn Chinese or Japanese, so to speak, or any other of the dialects to fly around the world and into those areas. But the people who they are flying in the service of serviceability that they're offering, they got to learn the English language, as well as the other pilots that fly out of those countries. Why is that? See, that's the dominant effect of the domino and dominant effect of the empire of the Greco-Roman Empire that's been spread around the world. Now, how did all this come about? If we go back to the foundation, just for a moment, if you can recall, there was a time after the flood. Now, we know the flood cleared up a lot of things, and what language was spoken at that time, we have not much in terms of that information. We would understand from a spiritual perspective, intelligent spiritual perspective, that it would have been an ancient Hebrew language, okay, before the rest of the Sumerians and the cuneiform languages and everything else was formulated. It was all Paleo-Hebrew. Now, snapshot, Noah, in his tent, once the ark landed, dispersal of animals and everything else that had to go back to the locations where it was culturally best for them. Noah was said to have been totally inebriated. He was drunk, okay, off of, I guess, someone made some wine and he was getting it and getting down with it. Now, I hit this up before and I talked about it, and many people could receive it and some can't receive it. But think about how it matches up with actually what transpired. When a person drinks, and they drink as much as they do, and if they are drunk, they sometimes you have them, or you see them having a conversation with either themselves or where they believe, or you may believe someone's there, but you don't see anyone apparently there. Now, during the course and scope of them doing that, what's happening? They're having a conversation. It seems like it's a back and forth. Now, would it be out of line or impossible that Noah was having a conversation with Yahweh, with God, and he was getting downloaded the information that was necessary for his three sons to go out and perform the repopulation of the world based on the information that was given to Noah during the time when he was in that state of inebriation? What I mean is he was talking to the Most High, and he was asking questions as well as getting information. And where Shem and Japheth were, we don't necessarily know at the moment until they come in the picture later. But what we do know is Ham. Okay, that oldest son, he popped in on Noah, and the text is very parabolic in terms of what it's saying, that he uncovered his father's nakedness, or he saw him at that particular point. But the point was not that he saw or he uncovered his father's nakedness, because the state of what his mindset was, where he was getting information from the Most High, Ham was spying out this information. Case in point, proof of how the Hamitic people had such a high jump start on everything that happened in the world system when it came to land occupancy and where they were located. Think about it for a moment. Just let it marinate. Ham heard his father, heard what his father was repeating from what was being given to him by the Most High. And during that time, he was getting the understanding of what the land distribution would be, and whatever orders and directions and derivatives of directions would be given to all three of the sons. But Ham got a chance to check this out and get information before his brothers did. And in lieu of him getting it, Noah saw that he was doing this, was spying this out, and so Ham took off. Now, when he took off, he didn't take off and just go outside and apologize to his father and say, "Oh, I'm sorry, Dad, you were drunk and you were talking, and I just heard everything you said." No, Ham got that information and he fled into the world. Now, let's look at what he did when he got into the world. Ham got into the world. I'll be out of this in a minute. And when he got into the world, whatever he did with his offspring and his lineage, that would roll down through what Noah said, who would be cursed? Not Ham, who spied out the information, but Canaan. Think about it, grandson. So Canaan was cursed by Noah, not Ham. So there's a reason for that. That's a lesson for another time, but let me go forward. Canaan was cursed, but the curse that he put on him didn't rise up until it went down the line. Now, what ended up happening? Canaan, Cush, Nimrod. You get it? Canaan, okay, was in the line. Cush was in the line of Canaan and Ham, and Cush, he fathered Nimrod. Nimrod became a very powerful individual who had knowledge that was well above what anybody else had during that time in existence at that particular point. He had a wealth of knowledge, not to mention he was a mighty man in terms of his ability to wield what knowledge he had that was above many of the others who he had a control over, just say the world system, sort of like Nebuchadnezzar, like King Nebuchadnezzar for the most part, all right? Counterpart, okay, his downline after that. What did he do? What did Nimrod do? Nimrod was, of course, responsible for orchestrating a union of all the nations in one language, as this will be said, of course, in the scriptures, when the Father sent YAHAWASHI down and the angels to confuse their languages because they're all of one speech in building a tower. Tower's not going to reach the heaven because heaven's in a different dimension. It's not up in the sky, but they use a metaphor, okay, again. So, Nimrod had a lot of power over people to do a lot of things, including subvert souls based on the knowledge he had that his grandfather and great-grandfather passed down to him. And the people were all of one mind and one speech. So what ended up happening? This is where we're going to close this portion out of this part of it. He went on ahead and was adamant about getting this tower built, feeling that he could possibly outdo the Most High God, Yahweh, and the angels of flooding the earth again, because this tower would be so heavy that the flood would not be able to affect it. So in the process, the Father saw this, of course, with the angels looking it out, spying it out. And so he sent YAHAWASHI and the angels down, and they confused all the languages of all the people that were all unified at that time. Once those unifications of those languages became apparent, he confused them. And once he confused them, the unification was no longer in play. They were no longer unified as far as their languages are concerned. Now, what happened? What's the derivative that happened from the dismantling of the unification of the languages that they had before? Unified, but no longer unified. Each group of individuals that were starting to speak another language, and I don't know the derivatives of how the Father spread it all out to separate various people. I don't know. Certain individuals, I would say from one group, in another group, in another group, they all spoke these various different languages. Now, in course and scope of speaking these different languages, what would end up being the case that they would start to do? They all had a rendition and depiction and understanding of the flood, remember, because they were all there building towards not seeing a flood again with this tower. So if someone became part of the biblical 18 nations and they all spoke a different language, they would in turn what? Build a deity through the language and the knowledge and information that they had. See what I'm saying? So you got the Moabites that are going to speak a language that's their specific language, and they're going to build a deity from the Most High Yahweh's essence of matter and creation that he brought forth on the earth, and they'll formalize their actual worshiping idol in their language, i.e. Okay, same thing for Elam and the Elamites. They're going to have Shira and the 12, 8-armed, whatever god that they formulated, okay? And you can go right down the list to each one of these organizations that eventually had a language and dialogue, and they form a worshiped entity and deity to and from the language that was confused, that they now harbor, and now this is their form of worship and their form of a god, okay? And on through to right now to where we are currently with idolatry in forming a language and a people that follow a Jesus Christ type situation. That's not the sacredness that came from the Paleo-Hebrew or the original, but it is formalized through the language of the people who speak that Greek Latin language, okay? The Arabs, Aramaic, right? Even though that Aram was a grandson of Abraham, Aramaic came through the Arabs. Ishmael, the Ishmaelites, they're into Islam. They have what? The cobblestone. They go around that. They worship through that in that manner. That's their formation of being able to communicate directly with who they call Allah God. See, so you can see once the languages were confused, they're going to formulate deities in their language that they understand, which if you can receive that, you understand how this goes. So, and this permeated all the way down into and through where we are now in terms of our scriptures, our book, but it was all designed by YAHAWASHI to go through the prophetic timeline all the way to the end. And this is why this situation about the Hellenization, the hypnotized Hellenization on this whole world prophetic system timeline is going to go all the way to the end. And that's why we're going to, and we're already coming into finding ourselves or remembering ourselves while we're here in this captivity, even under this particular language with this particular deity that is pronounced and promoted through this language, i.e. the Jesus Christ name and what have you. So as we can see, this is part of how you can see the permutation of the Hellenized process that has been presented throughout the entire world system. And this is what you see, because if this was not true, then how is it that all these individuals and all these people, wherever they are all influenced by the Hellenization of the people who are currently in control of the world system that we see at this point in time, and they're put in that position for that purpose. Okay, so this is what we understand, and this is what we know. All right, so now, knowing that, we can go ahead and start breaking down how all this has come about and get into some scriptures in terms of addressing those factors. Okay, now the first place we're going to start is, I always like to start in the in what we could consider to be the Old Testament, and we include the books of the Apocrypha in that as well. Okay, even though they brought some of them through the Septuagint, that Greek translation of the Hebrew Bible, we still want to stick with the fact that this is where these things start. So what we want to make sure we understand is YAHAWAH puppetized Esau, Edom, to push forced worldwide Hellenization. YAHAWAH did this. The Most High is in control of everything. He puppetized Esau, Edom, to push forced worldwide Hellenization. Now, what does that mean? We have a language, we have a branch of captivity, a branch of exile, and in the center going through the middle, we have the communication mindset of the scattered, of the Israelites who are Hellenized. And the Hellenization process has hit them heavily and was targeted specifically for them. And we're going to show that as we go through precepts. Let's start in 1 Maccabees. So if you've got your Apocrypha, get your Apocrypha out. Go to your Apocrypha on your phone, or go through it on your computer, your tablet, and pull up 1 Maccabees chapter 1. This is where we need to go, all right? We need to go there first, because this is where we're going to start reading, all right? So let me go ahead and get you there so we can go ahead and start this, all right? And we're going to read it. So whenever y'all get 1 Maccabees chapter 1, we're going to start reading that, and we're going to break it down as we go forward, because this is important. We got quite a few precepts to go through this, so stay with me. I told you this is going to be a little while, so get yourselves together and get ready to rock on this, because we're going to rock it. We're going to rock it. Let me get some of my juice here. Hold on a second. All right. Shot. All right. Okay. 1 Maccabees chapter 1, verse 1. And it happened after that Alexander, son of Philip, the Macedonian, see, he was an Edomite, who came out of the land of Chittim, had smitten Darius, king of Persia, and the Persians and the Medes, that he reigned in his stead. In other words, he took over his kingdom, the first over Greece. All right? All right. And made many wars and won many strongholds and slew the kings of the earth. And went through to the ends of the earth and took spoils of many nations, inasmuch that the earth was quite quiet before him, whereupon he was exalted and his heart was lifted up. So you can see the Edomites were pushing. They already. This was the foundational formation of the Hellenization process that's going to be locked in and take place. Okay, make sure we understand that. And he gathered a mighty strong host and ruled over countries and nations and kings who became tributaries unto him. See, all these locations were under the Greek Macedonian king at that time, ruler Alexander, right? And after these things, he fell sick and perceived that he should die. Wherefore he called his servants, these are the other generals he had, right, as were honorable, and he had brought up with him from his youth, and parted his kingdom among them while he was yet alive. Now, you had four of them. What? It was Seleucus, Seleucus. I always get on these dudes, right? Ptolemy, Seleucus, Slander, and I don't know. Y'all got to beginning of that. It's sometimes I can remember them, and sometimes no. I'm not that good, but I'm good. Okay. If it comes to me as I'm going forward, I'll bring them out. All right. But he parted these to his 4 generals. Okay. And he said Alexander reigned 12 years. Okay. So Alexander reigned 12 years, and then he died, and his servants bare rule over one in his place. And after his death, they all put crowns upon themselves. So did their sons after them many years, and evils were multiplied in the earth. You see what I'm saying? So already you see the Edomites were already evil. Okay, that was the case. That's what they were doing. Were multiplied in the earth. And there came out of them a wicked root, Antiochus, surnamed Epiphanes, son of Antiochus the king, who had been in hostage at Rome, and he reigned in the 137th year of the kingdom of the Greeks. In those days went there out of Israel wicked men. See, look at this. In those days went out there wicked men who persuaded many, saying, let us go and make a covenant with the heathen that are round about us. For since we departed from them, we have had much sorrow. You see what I'm saying? So these were Hebrews and Israelites, and they had decided that they want to be part of the Greeks. Now, you see this to be the case right now. Look at the men in this world system. One thing that Greeks were really famous for was a lot of tattoos. They get tatted up like crazy all over the place. And look at the men of all cultures who are tatted up from head to toe just about. That's definitely a pagan, wicked Greek culture, okay? And it's just like gymnasiums and wrestling naked and all this stuff. This is what they do. But we had wicked Israelites that wanted to be part of this, okay? Because it says that. That was 11. In those days went out of Israel wicked men who persuaded many, saying, let us go and make a covenant. See, a covenant is an agreement to be part of who they are in every capacity with the heathen that are round about us. For since we departed from them, we have had much sorrow. Just like they were in Egypt and they were talking about missing the cucumbers and the bagels and the onions and stuff like that when they were taken through the wilderness to get to the promised land. 12. So this device pleased them well. Then certain of the people were so forward herein that they went to the king, who gave them license to do after the ordinances of the heathen. Whereupon they built a place of exercise at Jerusalem according to the customs of the heathen. There would be a gymnasium, and made themselves uncircumcised, and forsook the holy covenant, and joined themselves to the heathen, and were sold to do mischief. And you see, this is the same type of propitiation that you see going on right now in this country. We have Israelites who don't know they're Israelites, and some of them do, but they are stuck and they love this Greco-Roman Empire system in this way of life. And we tend to say from time to time, you love your slave master, because clearly that's what you're doing. But this is what you're participating in. You're getting tatted up. You love his economic platform. You love his educational platform. You love his social platform. You love it all. And you're spiritually blocked to do so because that's part of prophecy. And 2/3 of our people, as well as 2/3 of this belief system, is going to be under this particular wicked way of understanding and operation. Okay? All right? Now, when the kingdom was established before Antiochus, he thought to reign over Egypt, that he might have the dominion of 2 realms. Wherefore he entered into Egypt with a great multitude, with chariots and elephants and horsemen and a great navy, and made war against Ptolemy, king of Egypt. But Ptolemy was afraid of him and fled, and many were wounded to death. Okay? All right? 19. Thus they got the strong cities in the land of Egypt, and he took the spoils thereof. And after that Antiochus had smitten Egypt, he returned again in the 140th and third year, and went up against Israel and Jerusalem with a great multitude. You hear that? 21. And entered proudly into the sanctuary, and took away the golden altar and the candlestick of light and all the vessels thereof. 22. And the table of shewbread, and the pouring vessels, and the victuals, and the censers of gold, and the veil, and the crown, and the golden ornaments that were before the temple, all which he pulled off. Okay? He took also the silver and the gold and the precious vessels. Also he took the hidden treasures which he found. Now you can see this is the same attitude, mindset, and functionality of Esau Edom around the world. He's went into all the different countries of the world where he's performed unaliving, slavery, genocide of all these nations, taking all their resources, taking all their precious things, and put them in institutes and museums or in their areas of the world, over in what they call Europe. All those precious things that belong to countries that were important to their culture and their way, Esau Edom went and took them and just claimed them, and then tries to act like he's the originator of them. Okay, so crazy. And when he had taken all away, he went into his own land, having made a great massacre and spoken very proudly. 25. Therefore there was a great mourning in Israel in every place where they were, so that the princes and the elders mourned, the virgins and the young men were made feeble, and the beauty of the women was changed. Every bridegroom took up lamentation, as she that sat in the marriage chamber was in heaviness. 28. The land also was moved for the inhabitants thereof, and all the house of Jacob was covered with confusion. And see, this is what you see currently right now. This same process that I just read to you is being enacted right now in this country the way you see it. The land was also moved for the inhabitants thereof. What do you see here? They came here, my tribe, my family members that were indigenous here. What did they do? They genocided our people, 77 million unalived, so that they could steal the land and claim it to be the name of a land that has nothing to do with the origination of the land in itself. This place was not called no America back when my indigenous family members were here. And they came here under false pretense and took the land and unalived millions of my ancestors. And they've been doing this around the entire world. The land also was moved for the inhabitants thereof, and all the house of Jacob was covered with confusion. And after 2 years fully expired, the king sent his chief collector of tribute unto the cities of Judah, who came unto Jerusalem with a great multitude, 30, and spake peaceable words unto them. See, but all was deceit. See, they always do that. They come in speaking peace and safety and all that, but they all got a knife for your back. For when they had given him credence, he fell suddenly upon the city and smote it very sore, and destroyed much people of Israel. And when he had taken the spoils of the city, he set it on fire and pulled down the houses and walls thereof on every side. But the women and the children took they captive and possessed the cattle. You see that? 33. Then builded they the city of David with a great and strong wall and with mighty towers, and made it a stronghold for them. And they put therein a sinful nation, wicked men, and fortified themselves therein. They stored it also with armor and victuals, and when they had gathered together the spoils of Jerusalem, they laid them up there, and so they became a sore snare. Okay? For it was a place to lie in wait against the sanctuary and the evil adversary to Israel. Thus they shed innocent blood on every side of the sanctuary and defiled it. See that? 38. Inasmuch that the inhabitants of Jerusalem fled because of them, whereupon the city was made an habitation of strangers. See? And became strange to those that were born in her, and her own children left her. See, now we're starting to see the whole thing come into play, right? Here, Shalaki, her sanctuary was laid waste like a wilderness. Her feasts were turned into mourning, her Sabbaths into reproach, her honor into contempt. Okay? So you can see this is the same process and the same inactivity and actualization that's happening here in this area, in this country, Rome 2.0, the spirit of Rome, the spirit of Egypt, the spirit of Nineveh, all right here in this country, the spirit of Sodom and Gomorrah. It's all incorporated right here in this land, and people are spiritually blocked. A lot of people are spiritually blocked to be able to see this. This is that this is that hypnotized Hellenization process that has been formulated and pushed prophetically around the entire world system, all the way to the end. And the Most High, YAHAWASHI, what he did was he puppetized Esau, Edom to perform and force this worldwide Hellenization on this entire world system. Can you not see this? He's showing you right now. The same thing happened back then is happening right now in front of your face. Okay? All right? As he said, her sanctuary was laid waste like the wilderness, like a wilderness. Her feasts were turned into mourning, and her Sabbaths into reproach, her honor into contempt. 40. As had been her glory, so was her dishonor increased, and her excellency was turned into mourning. Moreover, King Antiochus wrote to his whole kingdom that all should be one people. This is what you see right now. You hear wacky-tackies, Christians, and all types of religious practitioner belief system people saying, oh no, God loves everyone. We have to be all part of the kingdom of God. We have to be all of God's people. We have to be all part of him. No, that's not the case, because the scriptures don't pan that out and don't say that. He has a chosen people. He has a selected, elected, and you're not going to change it in no possible way. And bringing fake white Jesus into the play to say that does not change anything, because the Savior, who they inwardly call that name, he didn't come to change what the Father set in motion from the beginning to the end. He didn't come to change any of that. He came to fulfill his Father's will, not change his Father's will, just so you know. Okay? All right? 42. All right, 41, we will reiterate 41. Moreover, King Antiochus wrote to his whole kingdom that all should be one people, and everyone should leave his laws. See? So all the heathen agreed according to the commandment of the king. Everyone should leave his laws. See, we have law, statutes, commandments that YAHAWASHI gave us, which is what we have to follow, not religion, okay? Even though the process or the blueprint of a religion is a formation of presentation, we're not in a religion. We got law, statutes, and commandments, which is our heritage and our way of life. But they're saying to leave it. Now, if you notice, the religious practitioner organizations that fall under the Christianity banner, they tell you to leave all the law, just like he's saying here, and follow their loosely based belief system on our book, which we're not doing that, because that's not who we are. We're not following loosely based Christianity and their derivatives and denominational organizations that are out there that are similar to that, and falling back into that. That's not who we are, and that's not what we're doing. But they try to force that by hearing our scriptures, taking our scriptures, and then subverting our scriptures. By the way, they are predetermined to do this because it's a process of protection and correction for us, but a led astray process for them. And that's why what they speak in terms of scriptures and how they try to debate us in terms of, or debate people in terms of the accuracy of it, they fall completely short because they're not accurate. and the things that they say that they're wanting to address, like saying, "Oh no, the Gentiles are all included." No, anytime it's talking about our scriptures in our book, the Gentiles in there are clearly defined on who is who, whether they are going to be servants as other nations, or whether they're going to be Hellenized Israelites who don't know that they're actually the tribes of Israel and the chosen people. But the process of understanding falls on the translation of it by us if we're not spiritually blocked and unable to do it. But if you are not spiritually blocked and able to do it, you can tell and teach that the Hellenization process were named Gentiles through the Septuagint, where the confusion came in. Because back in the Hebrew, they weren't called Gentiles. They were called the nations, or they were called Eudos, which means that the brethren, and they were the ethnos in that manner. They weren't called Gentiles because that was something brought through the Septuagint that brought the level of confusion that worked in the loosely based Christianity and other belief systems that follow that pattern. And that's not who we are. So this is showing you that this is what this wicked king Antiochus was formatting and foundationing at that particular time. And everyone should leave their laws. So all the heathen agreed according to the commandment of the king. And some of the heathen were also the wicked Israelites that went to this king in the first time and wanted to make a covenant with them that I read early on and further up in this chapter. Let me go to 43. Yea, many also of the Israelites, see, consented to his religion and sacrificed unto idols and profaned the Sabbath. See, again, yea, many also of the Israelites consented to his religion. Now, some consented and some were forced to do this, okay? We will get to that, all right? Now, for the king has sent letters by messengers unto Jerusalem and the cities of Judah that they should follow the strange laws of the land and forbid burnt offerings and sacrifices and drink offerings in the temple, and that they should profane the Sabbath and the festival days and pollute the sanctuary and the holy place. And this is what you see duplicated currently right now in this country, the valley of the shadow of death, right here where we are. And you can see it's turning up to be that capacity extremely, extremely fast, okay? And this is what the same rulership directives apply then that are being applied now, okay? All right, 47. Set up altars and groves and chapels of idols, see, all in false churches and stuff, and sacrifice swine's flesh and unclean beasts. 48. And they should also leave their children uncircumcised, see, that's away from the covenant, and make their souls abominable with all manner of uncleanness and profanation, to the end they might forget the law and change all the ordinances. 50. And whosoever would not do according to the commandment of the king, he said he should die. In other words, they're going to put you to unalive. You see what I'm saying? In the self same manner wrote he to his whole kingdom and appointed overseers over all the people, commanding the cities of Judah to sacrifice city by city. See, overseers. Do we not have overseers over us? Not only within our own culture and people, but also from the other culture of the Edomites who have overseers over us. Again, it's what you see, okay? Then many of the people were gathered unto them, to wit, everyone that forsook the law, and so they committed evils in the land, and drove the Israelites into secret places, even wheresoever they could flee for secure, right? Now, the 15th day of the month of Cassiel, in the 140th and 5th year, they set up the abomination of desolation upon the altar and builded idol altars throughout the cities of Judea on every side, and burnt incense at the door of their houses and in the streets. 56. And when they had rent in places the books of the law, hear that? When they had rent in places the books of the law, which they found, they burnt them with fire. You see, and this stuff is on its way. And whosoever was found with any of the book of the testament or any committed to the law, the king commanded was that they should be put to death. See that? Thus did they by their authority unto the Israelites every month to as many as were found in the city. See, this is what they were going around doing that, right? Coming again to a place near you. Now the 25th day of the month, they did sacrifice upon the idol altar, which was upon the altar of YAHAWAH. See that? At which time, according to the commandment, they put to death certain women that had caused their children to be circumcised. And they hanged the infants about their neck, see that? And rifled their houses and slew them that had circumcised them. See how wicked these devils are? Howbeit many in Israel were fully resolved and confirmed in themselves not to eat any unclean thing. Wherefore, the rather to die, that they might not be defiled with meats, and that they might not profane the holy covenant. So then they died, and there was very great wrath upon Israel. You see that? So you can see this situation has happened then, and it's coming to a place near all of us soon, because the heathen are in control, because they have to be to the end when YAHAWASHI comes back for his people. So we can see that was the first indication of the foundational formation of the Hellenization process that I'm showing you all the way back from the Maccabean period, that is clearly stated in history, but it was augmented from the scriptures in the beginning from the Council of Nicaea, when they became the belief system of Christianity, and they took those 14 books of the Apocrypha and pulled it out so you wouldn't have this information and know who the Edomites are who did this. Okay, and who are still doing things. All right, so they pulled that out, but now all information is coming out. And if you even go to GBT or Google, they will give you some of this information. If you ask it in the proper manner, they will give that information to you. Okay, we get it from the scriptures ourselves, and we get it through the Spirit, and that's how we are relating this information. But it can be found in many ways. Now, what we need to understand is this Hellenization process was entrenched in the world system, and it is still being entrenched in the world system, as you can see currently. They're fighting to keep the same platform narrative of this level of deception, this level of deceit, and this level of misinformation or disinformation and confusion. And the Father is the one that's keeping it in this manner, because, as I said before, and he has me say many times, foundationally, it is a protection and correction process that is going forward to our deliverance. A protection and correction process that's going forward to our deliverance, okay? Make sure we don't confuse ourselves in that. Now, we're going to start breaking down about the brethren and how we are who we say we are through the Hellenization process. That's very important for us to get to that point. Now, I have to go to, of course, Second Maccabees to pull some information from that perspective. And in Second Maccabees, chapter 2, so while we're still in the Apocrypha, let's touch that. Second Maccabees, chapter 2, and we're going to pull that up. And here, it's talking about, of course, we're going to talk about Jeremy. It's also the records of Jeremy and the prophet commanding them that were carried away to take of the fire as it had been signified. Basically, we got to identify what was going to happen in terms of our scattering, and what happened to us in terms of our are sacrificing in dedication to finishing the temple and getting things back in line. Now, this particular portion of it is important because during that time, we had a lot of subversion going on within the ranks of the Israelites in general. And a lot of them were, not only were they completely convinced that they should be part of the heathens covenant, but they were pretty much spying out and telling on their own culture and tribe members and just turning them over to Antiochus and the authorities and the things that were going on in Egypt during the Alexandria period. And this is what they were doing. And they were going through a war. It was the Ptolemaic, Seleucus, Salander, and that was a war. And Lachesis, those four. It was a war between all of them, the southern part, the northern part, and they were fighting against each other in terms of rulership of that area. Before the rulership rose back up of the Babylonians and took over. But it was important to understand this because the heathen in themselves were manifesting themselves throughout the whole area. And they were very strong in terms of the ability to do that. Okay, so let me read some of this in terms of all right, let me read some of this. So I'm gonna start at I'm at Maccabees chapter 2, and okay. I'm going to start at 9, okay, and read down. It says here, verse 9, it was also declared that he, being wise, offered the sacrifice of the dedication and of the finishing of the temple. And as when Moses prayed unto the Lord, the fire came down from heaven and consumed the sacrifices. Even so prayed Solomon also, and the fire came down from heaven and consumed the burnt offerings. And Moses said, because the sin offering was not to be eaten, it was consumed. So Solomon kept those 8 days. The same things also were reported in the writings and commentaries of Neemias, and how he founded a library, gathered together the acts of the kings and the prophets and of David and the epistles of the kings concerning the holy gifts. In like manner, also Judas gathered together all those things that were lost by reason of the war we had, and they remained with us. See, that was the war with Alexander's wicked kings that took possession of the lands in the area, right? Wherefore, if ye have need thereof, send some to fetch them unto you. Whereas we then are about to celebrate the purification, we have written unto you, and ye shall do well if ye keep the same days. We hope also that YAHAWAH, that delivered all his people and gave them all in heritage the kingdom and the priesthood and the sanctuary, as promised in the law, will shortly have mercy upon us and gather us together out of every land under heaven into the holy place. For he hath delivered us out of the great troubles and hath purified the place. 19. Now as concerning Judas Maccabeus and his brethren, and the purification of the great temple, and the dedication of the altar, and the wars against Antiochus Epiphanes and Epitor his son, and the manifest signs that came from heaven unto those that behave themselves manually to their honor of Judea, so that being but a few, they overcame the whole country and chased barbarous multitudes. 22. And recovered again the temple, renowned all the world over, and freed the city, and upheld the laws which were going down, the Lord being gracious unto them with all favor. 23. All these things I say being declared by Jason of Cyrene in the 5 books we will essay to abridge in 1 volume. For considering the infinite number of the number and the difficulty in which they find that desire to look into the narrations of the story for the variety of the matter, we have been careful that they that will read may have delight, and that they that are desirous to commit to memory might have ease, and that all into whose hands it comes might have profit. Therefore to us, right? Therefore to us that have taken upon us the painful labor of abridging, it was not easy, but a matter of sweat and watching. Even as it is no ease unto him that prepareth a banquet and seeketh the benefit of others, yet for the pleasuring of many, we will undertake gladly this great pains, leaving to the author an exact handling of every particular and laboring to follow the rules of an abridgment. As for the master builder of a new house, must care for the whole building, but he that undertaketh it, set it out and paint it, must seek out fit things for the adoring thereof. Even so, I think it is with us to stand upon every point and go over things at large, and to be curious in the particulars belonging to the first author of the story, but to use brevity and avoid much labor of the work is to be granted to him that will make an abridgment. Here then we will begin the story, only adding thus much, to which hath been said, that it is a foolish thing to make a long prologue and to be short in the story itself. So the Most High is basically letting us know in this process here that we were going through organizing and categorizing the truth in the word after we were going through this war with Antiochus Epiphanes, Alexander's wicked downline, the Edomites, and trying to get things set back in order in reference to who we are as a people. But the process of the Hellenization, the hypnotized Hellenization process, was overwhelming, and it wasn't going to be taken away because the Most High was purposed it to follow through prophecy. It had to continue. But what we needed to focus on, the fact when we teach and we talk to the brethren and we talk to anyone that could be the selected elected that may approach a camp, an organization, or even online, that we give a foundational perspective in terms of where things started as well as where things are going to end up and go. And we needed to be able to put that in perspective as we're doing this. And this is why we were doing it as such. So now we're going to go and start breaking down more scripture. And we have to, in terms of justifying how the Hellenization process is spread around the world. And particularly the way it's focused on us, because the Israelites are the covenant. The Israelites are the ones that are going to be in the covenant and part of the covenant going into the new covenant in the new kingdom of heaven, whereas they will be in that royal managerial capacity, whereas the rest of the nations will be under royal management capacity. Okay, we need to make sure we understand that. Okay, so we're going to talk about I need to talk about Paul, and Paul had to use the Septuagint to speak to the Hellenized Israelites. He had to do it because that's the language they were speaking, just like the language we're speaking right now. We're in this situation because why? Because we're in our captivity. We're in exile. So this is what we had to go through. And Paul using the Greek Septuagint, okay? And so, okay, Paul using the Greek Septuagint to communicate with the scattered Hellenized Israelites. That's who he was talking to. Now, by Paul using the Septuagint to speak to the Hellenized Hebrew Israelites in the Greek language, Paul spoke more than just Greek. He studied under Gamaliel. Well, we're gonna pull that information out too. He studied under Gamaliel, and he knew the law. He knew the Old Testament. He knew everything that needed to be known, and he was formulating and bringing forth the New Testament in terms of the way that he was communicated via being ordained by YAHAWASHI HaMashiach. Road to Damascus when he was Saul, after Stephen was stoned to death, holding the coat, he was still a chosen vessel under the Most High, even under the circumstances of what happened. Let me read this. This is important reference to talk about how Apostle Paul was using the Septuagint because he had to speak to the captive language of the Hellenized Israelites. Yes, the Apostle Paul frequently used the Septuagint, the ancient Greek translation of the Hebrew Bible, because Paul wrote in his letters to Greek and ministered largely throughout the Greek-speaking Roman world. The vast majority of Old Testament quotations align with the wording of the Septuagint rather than the Hebrew text. You hear that? Evidence of Paul using the Septuagint. Matching wording, many of Paul's direct quotes from books like Isaiah, Psalms, and Genesis mirror the Greek Septuagint verbatim. Even when the Greek translation differs textually from the traditional Hebrew Masoretic text. Combined passages in sections like Romans 3:10 and 18. Paul strings together a series of verses from different parts of the Old Testament in the exact unique sequence found in a single Septuagint manuscript tradition. So you can see what was happening here is Paul had to speak to the Hellenized scattered Israelites in the Greek and tie it in with the Hebrew, but speak it in the language, as we're doing now. As I said before, the apostles have told us many times that we have to use and break down a word in the Greek and also in the Hebrew, because we're speaking the language of our captivity, and we have to reach the elect who are obviously learned, and what's been stripped of them is their original language, but they have the capacity through the Rawhacca, the Spirit, to understand and pick up the Hebrew. But right now, they have to be able to get a translational understanding in terms of the language, so it's going to be through the captivity language that we have in terms of the Greek, which coincidentally also follows in the score of the Septuagint. Now, the Father has said to me, there's no reason why you can't present the Hebrew first. Case in point, when you're giving him praise and worship, speak the Hebrew, speak the Paleo-Hebrew first to him, not the Greek, okay? The Father understands all the language, but out of his honor and his respect, because why? All honor goes to Yahweh through YAHAWASHI, as YAHAWASHI gets honor as well. Because Yahweh and YAHAWASHI are the only that rule well. They rule well. That's why they control all of this situation that's happening through the prophetic timeline. Foundational control, rules well. Everything's on schedule in the prophetic timeline. Everything in prophecy is right on schedule. So, who deserves all the honor? Yahweh and YAHAWASHI. Everyone else should get affirmation, but they don't deserve anything more than that, because the Most High rules in the kingdom of men. Men don't rule in the kingdom of men, because look how jacked up everything is in the kingdom of men who claim they rule. You don't have any power to rule anything well. By the way, Father gets all the rule. Father gets all the honor. YAHAWASHI included, through to him. That's how it works, because he's in control. All right? Let me finish, not to digress. All right, so it says, combined passages in sections like Romans 3:10, 18. Paul strings together a series of verses from different parts of the Old Testament in the exact unique sequence found in the single Septuagint manuscript tradition. Audience context. Writing to Hellenized Greek-speaking Christians. See, they call them Christians in Antioch, but they're Israelites, communities and Gentiles Hellenized. Using the common Greek Bible of the first century was the most practical and efficient way to communicate. Now, as the Father had me say, yes, the practicality of using the Blue Letter Bible, using the Strong's Concordance, using the lexicon, using all of these documentations and derivatives of what? The Septuagint Greek interpretations of our scriptures. You got to communicate effectively with people who don't speak another language, okay? Because if they spoke another language, you could go Hebrew all the way if they spoke that, but they don't know it. Yes, you've been teaching them, but you should still, when addressing the Father, give him the respect to speak to him in the language that he gave you, that his sacred language that you now know. You get it? Don't deviate from that. Don't be clueless in understanding to do that. You go Hebrew, then any other language. That should be the nuance of it. Nuances in Paul's background. Bilingual background. As a Pharisee and a Hebrew of Hebrews, trained under Gamaliel, Paul likely had training in Hebrew and Aramaic. Flexible citations. Scholars note that Paul did not always quote rigidly. At times, he appears to modify Septuagint readings, translate Hebrew phrases freely from memory, or adopt the text to fit his theological argument for the specific audience he was addressing. And who was that specific audience? They were the Hellenized Hebrew Israelites that did not remember or know they were Hebrew from the time of Antiochus, when they were forced and some agreed to go and become the heathen. Gentiles. Okay? All right? Specific examples of verses where Paul follows the Septuagint over the Hebrew. Right? How Paul used the Greek terminology shaped early Christian theologies. And that's how Christianity was loosely based on the Bible, on the scriptures, because Paul was using a transliteration of the Hebrew text in order to speak to who? To speak to the Hellenized Israelites, the hypnotized, Hellenized, scattered Israelites, right? Who are these people? Okay, let's talk about that from the Bible, from the scriptures. First place we're going to go in the New Testament to validate that information, and we're going to go, no, let's stay in the Old Testament before we go to the New Testament, okay? Because we're going to talk about them being scattered. So let's go there. Let's go old, and let's go to Psalms 69, okay? Elder Manaf Zakba of GMS South Carolina was briefly talking about some of this as well when he did his dissertation on a comment board situation that was presented that he addressed quite proficiently. So let's deal with this. Psalm 68, right? Now, this is of course in the scripture. In the chapter where a cry of distress and imprecation on adversaries, of course, by David. But we're going to go down to 8, and we're going to say that. Let's just go up a little bit, because it's always good to do that. 7, Psalms chapter 69, verse 7. Because for thy sake I have borne reproach, shame hath covered my face. This is David talking, but it speaks about the scattered. Next verse, 8. I am become a stranger unto my brethren. See? A stranger, a scattered, and an alien unto my mother's children. For the zeal of thine house hath eaten me up, and the reproaches of them that reproached thee are fallen upon me. So that in itself shows you that there were individuals that were called strangers, but they were the scattered Hebrew Israelites. They were Hellenized, okay? There was a Hellenization process that Father put on the whole world. Okay, next, let's stay in the Old Testament. Let's go to Jeremiah. Okay, in Jeremiah And we're going to go to chapter 2 and 21. And this is Judah's apostasy, of course. Right? Okay, and it says here, Jeremiah 2, verse 21. Yet I had planted thee a noble vine, holy and right seed. How then art thou turned into a degenerate plant of a strange vine unto me? You see what I'm saying? So the Father is showing you that there were individuals that were scattered, but at the same time they were scattered, they didn't know who they were, and they turned into a reprobate branch. Next, we're going to Isaiah 61. Okay, so go with me, Isaiah 61. All right, and it's an exaltation of the afflicted, of course. And I'm going to go down. Where are we at? That it? All right, we're going to start at 3. To appoint unto them that mourn in Zion, to give unto them beauty for ashes and oil of joy for mourning, the garment of praise for the spirit of heaviness, that they might be called the trees of righteousness, see, the planting of YAHAWAH the Lord, that he might be glorified. 4. And they shall build the old waste, and they shall rise up the former desolations, and they shall repair the waste cities, the desolations of many generations. Right? And strangers shall stand and feed your flocks, and the sons of the alien shall be your plowmen and your vine dressers, and strangers shall feed your flocks. See, now we'll start talking this here. But ye shall be named the priest of YAHAWAH. Men shall call you the ministers of YAHAWAH. Ye shall eat the riches of the Gentiles. See, this is not talking about the other ones, and not just the scattered, of the Gentiles, and in their glory shall ye boast yourselves, right? You see what I'm saying? So the Father is showing you that there's a difference between the strangers and the Gentiles in terms of the other nations, and then the scattered Israelites, right? The Hellenized Israelites, to be specific. See, they start out being called strangers back then in the Old Testament, because they weren't using the word Gentiles. You see what I'm saying? So they were strangers. And they didn't start calling them Hellenized until the Maccabean period started and processed that. So then once they became through that period, then they were Gentiles and Hellenized, or Hellenista, okay, so to speak, okay? Now we're going to go to Deuteronomy real quick here. Deuteronomy 32, all right? And we'll go down to 20. I guess we could start there. Deuteronomy 32:20. And he said, I will hide my face from them. I will see what their end shall be, for they are a very forward generation, children in whom is no faith. 21. They have moved me to jealousy with that which is not YAHAWAH. They have provoked me to anger with their vanities, and I will move them to jealousy with those which are not a people. I will provoke them to anger with a foolish nation. See? And in that, you also have to be able to disseminate who the not of people are. Now, in Hosea, where he had to marry a prostitute, you had Jezreel, and you had the my people and not my people, right? So you had to know who they were. La Ruhama and La Ruhama, my people and not my people. That was because of the scattering and, of course, the clueless ability to follow the scriptures and understand prophetically where you're supposed to go and follow YAHAWASHI. But see, we know that we now use the language of our captivity and exile to communicate with the spiritually blocked, the lost Hebrew Israelites who are scheduled to wake up. So that's part of what we're supposed to do. So now we need to go ahead into the New Testament to validate also some more of that in terms of where we are. Um, and so we're going to tap on the New Testament, and I want to start with James. So go with me to the New Testament, and a lot of you already know this one. We're going to James 1:1, and it starts out right there, right out the beginning, through the process of your faith. Testing is a process, not just the testing, because testing means you could possibly not take the test, but you can't in this one because you're predetermined to go through the process of your faith. See how the Septuagint can write things in like testing and stuff like that, and things they said about Job. And, anyway, not to digress. James 1:1. James, a servant of Yahawah and of YAHAWASHI HaMashiach, to the 12 tribes which are scattered abroad, greetings. My brethren, see, he's talking to his brethren, not the whole nation of people around the world who were created by the Most High. All right, that's not the case. Read it. If I read it verbatim, the way the Septuagint has it here, it says, James, a servant of God and of our Lord Jesus Christ, to the 12 tribes which are scattered abroad, greetings. My brother, count it all joy when ye fall into diverse temptations. Now, see, that's where the Septuagint Hellenization interpretations and transliterations came into play, because you see they put in these information that name Lord Jesus Christ, and then they add other things that bring you into the Greek interpretational language. Okay, from here we're going to go to John 7. John chapter 7, and we're at 35. Okay, Yahushua is teaching at the feast. All right, you go down to 35. Now check this out. Yahushua was talking to the Pharisees, right? And let's start at 31. And many of the people believed on him and said, when Hamashiach cometh, will he do more miracles than these which this man have done? Question 32. The Pharisees heard that the people murmured such things concerning him, and the Pharisees and the chief priests sent officers to take him. Then said Yahushua unto them, yet a little while I am with you, and then I go unto him that sent me. I'm talking about his Father. Okay. 34. Ye shall seek me and shall not find me, and where I am, thither ye cannot come. Then said those priests, those Jews among themselves, whither will he go that we shall not find him? Question. Will he go unto the dispersed among the Gentiles and teach the Gentiles? See, will he go among the dispersed, right? The diaspora, and among the Gentiles. Now, which Gentiles is he talking about? Now, they're talking about all of those individuals in that area that are considered to be Gentiles, the ones who are indigenous and the ones who are in the land because of their captivity and have converted to being Hellenized. That's why you see Gentiles and Gentiles twice. Okay? All right? What manner of saying is this that he said, ye shall seek me and shall not find me, and where I am, thither ye cannot come? Right? So, again, this was giving you the indication in the Father, letting you know that the Israelites are Hellenized because they're calling them Gentiles. Now, if you broke this down and put, instead of Gentiles, which ones were the indigenous members of that area or the Hellenized members of that area, okay? So you have to disseminate the difference. Okay, from here we're going to staying in John, we're going to 11. All right, John chapter 11. Of course, this is the death and resurrection of Lazarus, but we're going to go down to 47, okay? And when we get down to 47, of course, this is the conspiracy to unalive Yahawashi HaMashiach, okay? Now, 47, it reads, then gathered the chief priests and the Pharisees a council and said, what do we, question, for this man doeth many miracles. Okay? You hear that? Check it out. If we let him thus alone, all men will believe on him, and the Romans shall come and take away both our place and nation. See, because they were appointed to those locations. They were not people who would be considered to be true Israelites. They were converts. Okay? They were the ish. Okay? All right? And one of them, named Caiaphas, being the high priest, that same year said unto them, Ye know nothing at all. 50, nor consider that it is expedient for us that one man should die for the people, and that the whole nation perish not. You see what I'm saying? And this spake he not of himself, but being high priest that year, he prophesied that YAHAWASHI should die for the nation. 52, and not for that nation only, but for also he should gather together in one the children of YAHAWAH that were scattered abroad. See? Scattered abroad. That was the purpose of going there, to let that be known, that that's what he was going to address. Now let's go to, we got to do Acts. And we're going to Acts, go with me to Acts chapter 11. Okay, we're going to start there. We got just a couple to hit in Acts, and then we'll bounce out and get to 1 Peter. Acts chapter 11. Okay, and we're going to start. This is Peter reports to Jerusalem, of course, and this is important because he has to address the scattered scattered Israelites that are Hellenized, and of course Paul is in the mix, and many others, and so this has to be addressed, and this is what should be broken down foundationally by brothers who are teaching this, even out there on the highways and byways, as well as on the unicorn of information. Okay, so starting at verse 1, and the apostles in Acts chapter 11, verse 1. And the apostles and brethren that were in Judea heard that the Gentiles had also received the word of YAHAWAH. These were the Hellenized Israelites, okay? Not the fact that the rest of the indigenous populace that were in the area that weren't Hebrew Israelites, they heard this. Now, as I said before, they liked what they heard, because you can see they formalized Christianity. So they liked the scriptures and the truth in the scriptures and the message of salvation and the good news. So why would they not try to adopt it? You can see that that's the case. They do this today. So, but it wasn't for them and it wasn't about them. But since they ear hustled it, they wanted to be part of it. They ear hustled it and they wanted to be part of it. Okay? And when Peter was come up to Jerusalem, they that were of the circumcision contended with him. In other words, the ones who were already in the truth and knew the truth, they were kind of contention against the Hellenized Israelites that didn't know who they were, saying, Thou wentest in to men uncircumcised and didst eat with them. But Peter rehearsed the matter from the beginning and expounded it by ordering unto them, saying, I was in the city of Joppa praying, and in a trance I saw a vision. A certain vessel descended, and it had been a great sheet let down from heaven by four corners, and it came even unto me, upon which, when I had fastened mine eyes, I considered and saw four-footed beasts of the earth, and wild beasts, and creeping things, and fowls of the air. And I heard a voice saying unto me, Arise, Peter, slay and eat. But I said, No, not so, Lord, for nothing common of unclean hath at any time entered into my mouth. Now, this is highly debated by religious practitioners in thinking that we can eat anything we want. This is a metaphor, parabolic speech, that's telling you that what he's saying is that there is going to be consternation in reforming, in conforming, in confirmation, in conforming and reforming Hellenized Hebrew Israelites, because they've been so accustomed to abomination. And this is a metaphor to speak about the abomination in the Reformation of the way that they've been operating for quite some time, close to probably a century. All right. And so in lieu of all of this, Peter is given this understanding and the analogy set forth in this metaphor in the way that the Father's presenting this information. And the voice answered me again from heaven, that Yahweh hath cleansed that call not thou shalaki. What Yahweh hath cleansed that call not thou common. So what he's saying is the Father here. See, that's when they try to say all meats are good and you can eat them. See, they're very surface level and superficial, and don't understand the deeper meaning of the truth that the covertness of Yahweh brings forward in light. What this means is what the Father has cleansed. He's talking about the scattered Hebrew Israelites who are going to be awakened as the elect. These members that could be of the selected elected, the higher levels of elected, they are cleansed and purified from the beginning and the foundation of the world. So because they are, the Father's seeing, don't call them common, because they're just like you in the light that they are. Okay? And it was, and this was done 3 times. And all were drawn up again into heaven. And behold, immediately there were 3 men already come unto the house where I was, sent from Caesarea unto me. And the Spirit bade me to go with them, nothing doubting. Moreover, these 6 brethren accompanied me and were entered into the man's house, and we entered into the man's house. He showed us how he had seen an angel in his house, which stood and said unto him, Send men to Joppa and call for Simon, whose surname is Peter, who shall tell thee words whereby thou and all thy house shall be saved. See? Now, saved in that manner means their understanding is going to be awakened in them. And as I began to speak, the Rawhacca, the Holy Ghost fell upon them as on us at the beginning. Then remembered I the word of the Lord, how that he said, John indeed baptized with water, but ye shall be baptized with the Rawhacca, or the Holy Spirit, the Holy Ghost. For as much then as Yahweh gave them the like gift as he did unto us, who believed on the Lord YAHAWASHI HaMashiach, what was I that I could withstand Yahweh? When they heard these things, they held their peace and glorified Yahweh, saying, Then hath Yahweh also to the Gentiles, or his scattered, or the Hellenized Israelites, granted repentance unto life, not to the regular indigenous Gentiles that were in the area who ear hustled the truth. This was to the Hellenized Israelites only. All right. Okay. So you got to get that down. You got to understand that, because a lot of people don't get it. All right. Now, when the Israelites in Antioch were starting to come into remembrance and being lifted up of the truth of who they are. 19. Now they which were scattered abroad upon the persecution that arose about Stephen traveled as far as Phoenix and Cyprus and Antioch, preaching the word to none but unto the Jews only, none but unto the Israelites only, the Hellenized, the scattered only. And some of them were men of Cyprus and Cyrene, which when they were come to Antioch spake unto the Grecians. Now, what Grecians? They're speaking to the ones that were Hellenized. They were called the Grecians. Look it up. Do a word search. Those were Hellenized, preaching the Lord YAHAWASHI. 21. And the hand of Yahweh was with them, and a great number believed and turned into the Lord. Then tidings of these things came unto the ears of the Israelites which was in Jerusalem. And they sent forth Barnabas that he should go as far as Antioch. See, now they wrote church in there, but it was the Israelites. Who else would he go to but other than the Israelites, right? Not no building. Who when he came and had seen the grace of Yahweh was glad and exalted them all, and with purpose of heart they would cleave unto the Lord. For he was a good man, full of the Holy Ghost, the Holy Spirit, and of faith. And much people was added unto the Lord. 25. Then departed Barnabas to Tarsus for to seek Saul, which of course would be Paul. And when he had found him, he brought him into Antioch. And it came to pass that a whole year they assembled themselves with the Israelites and taught much people. And the disciples were called Christians first in Antioch. See, that's that Septuagint interjection. But they were not called Christians at that time because they didn't speak that language. They were called Hamashiachium. 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 That's what they were called because that's the language that was spoken at the time. But the Septuagint and the Greek put that word Christian in there. And that's how they started to formulate this loosely based religious belief system called Christianity. But nobody breaks that down from a foundational perspective. They should do that. If you're going to give a definition, if you're going to give an explanation, if you're going to break down a lesson or a precept, don't just give half the truth. Don't omit things like Hamashiachium, where they put Christians. Tell the whole thing. Doom and gloom, prepare for wrath, and how you get delivered. Don't just give one side. It makes you sound dishonest and deceitful, even if you are in the truth. Think about it. Don't be clueless. Don't be so organized, doctrinated, and indoctrinated in your organization that you only tell half-truths of your presentations in a lesson. What the hell is wrong with you? I know you're spiritually blocked, and it's not for you to perceive it and receive it and then present it. Because if it was, you wouldn't just tell half the truth of the destruction. You would give the whole truth of the destruction coming, the wrath to prepare for it, and where it ends up. Be complete. Shalaki. Hey. 27. And in these days came prophets from Jerusalem into Antioch, and there stood up one of them named Agabus, and signified by the Spirit that there should be a great dearth throughout all the world, which came to pass in the days of Claudius Caesar. Then the disciples, every man according to his ability, according to his ability, get a clue, all right, determined to send relief unto the brethren which dwelt in Judea. What's relief? The truth. Okay? Which also they did, and sent it to the elders by the hands of Barnabas and Saul. Did you hear that? That was the move at that particular time. Now, let's go to Acts 17. All right? Paul at Thessalonica. Now, when they had passed through Amphipolis and Apollonia, they came to Thessalonica, where was a synagogue of Jews, of Israelites. See, who would be in the synagogue but Israelites? Not Ish. Was it some among them? Possibly, but this was for the Israelites. Thessalonica. And Paul, as his manner was, went in unto them, and 3 Sabbath days reasoned with them out of the scriptures. What was he doing? He was trying to tell them, you're Israelites, you're just Hellenized. You're hypnotized. You see where he gave me this? Paul went to reason with him, says, you're hypnotized Hebrew Israelites. How many Hebrew Israelites are hypnotized and they're Hellenized? Hello? Hint, hint, hint. Are you a hypnotized, Hellenized Israelite? Do you stand out and keep spouting off idolatrous names of the Savior and the Father? Do you make interjections of fornication and lustful thought processes that don't speak through the scriptures with proof? Do you do that? Well, Paul was trying to reason with them out of the scriptures, which is what we try to do. Key point, out of the scriptures. If you can't prove it in the scriptures, why are you trying to say it with reason? Hello? If you can't prove it in the scriptures, what you claiming you're going to receive, or what you want, and you can't prove it in the scriptures with reason forward, and it says scriptures, plural, not just one, then you shouldn't be trying to reason it among the potential selected elected. Stop pushing shit you can't prove. Shlaki. Going to bounce down to 13. Acts chapter 13. The first missionary journey, clearly, when Paul and Saul was rolling around, making sure that he was, then Saul, who also is called Paul, filled with the Holy Spirit, set his eyes upon him. I mean, he was doing it. But we're going to go down here. You need to read Acts 13, the whole chapter. I'm not going to read it for you because I'm far into the lesson, but I'm going to pick up 45. Why? Because Paul turns to the Gentiles there in 45. Acts 13, chapter 44, starting there. And the next Sabbath day came almost the whole city together to hear the words of YAHAWAH, the words of God. But when the Jews, or the Israelites, the Hellenized Israelites, as well as the circumcised Israelites, as well as those who thought they were, not thought they were, or whatever, when the Jews saw the multitudes, they were filled with envy. Why? See, Elder Manach Zakba went into this yesterday about that comment that was said, the Jews saw the multitude, all the scattered Hellenized Israelites, uncircumcised, probably tatted up, looking all crazy, all kinds of rings in their nose. I'm sorry, Father. Hold on, forgive me. I digress. They were filled with envy and spake against those things which were spoken by Paul, contradicting and blaspheming. Why? Because he was including them, because the Father already told you they were cleansed. That's what Peter was dealing with. They were cleansed. See, and this should lean on you heavy in reference to Israelites who are cleansed and they are predetermined before the foundation of the world, and they wear purple uniforms, and they claim and portray themselves as high and mighty, and we know that they're doing this, but again, just hold on a minute now. Who's controlling everything? I keep saying this. And I know, Father, you got them partially spiritually blocked to understand this, but they even say portions of it. They say the purple people, garment wearers, there are some elect within them. Within their ranks, there's some of these selected elected. They just haven't been completely unblocked spiritually and awakened to come out and know that what they're doing is contrary to the scriptures based on their presentation. But remember, who's making them do this? The Father is. They're not doing it on their own. Y'all got some real bad clue solving processes, You know that Yahweh controls all his creation at all times. So if the purple people, garment wearers, are going off, who's got them going off? They ain't doing it on their own. The Father's got them going off. And yes, there's some selected elected within them. We know that's the case. Just like in every organization, there's some selected elected, and then there's some predetermined individuals that are going to fall out because that's predetermined and predestined that they do so. But what is not your purpose, but you keep doing it anyway because you're spiritually partially blocked to this, is you're getting on them. Just like they're doing here in Acts 13. Which side of this fence are you on? Are you the one that they're talking to you and telling you that you ain't right and you ain't doing it right when the Father's got them doing all this right or wrong? Didn't the Father say the deceiver and the deceived is both his? Yes, he did. So he's controlling both of them. So who the hell are you to go do this to anybody else? Because everybody doing what they're doing, the Father's got them doing it. And here's the thing. If you don't fucking like it, then you're telling me that you don't like the way the Father's doing it. And I don't give a shit if you don't like me telling you that, because that's the way it is. You need to shut the fuck up and let Father do what he's doing and stop complaining about the way he manages his creation. If he's got the purple people wearing those garments, doing the shit they doing, they got to do it. Just like the shit you got to do. And are you checked on the stuff that you don't do right? How about that? You got a lot of stuff that you don't mirror the Mashiach with. Do you? The Mashiach don't hate his own women, but you do. You need to think about it. What's the deal? You don't like the way Yahawah, Bahasham, YAHAWASHI is doing, the way he's running his prophetic timeline? You don't like the way he's managing all his creation, the bug outs, the not so bug outs, the ones in the truth, the ones halfway in the truth, the ones partially in the truth, or the ones all the way in the truth. He controls it all. You got a fucking complaint, you got to complain to him. See how far you get with that. Don't kill the messenger. Get a freaking clue and do it right. Everything that's going on is right on schedule. Everybody that's doing anything wrong with a purple garment on, multicolored garment on, a t-shirt fringe, or anything else, the Most High got them doing it. They ain't doing it on their own. They're fulfilling prophetic purpose. Get it straight. Even the stuff I already told you, I know I'm a piece of shit. You ain't got to call commentary and tell me. I know it. But this is what he tells me. He's doing everything. He says, I, the Lord, do all these things. That includes everybody doing everything. You, me, and everyone else. None of us are completely compliant with Yahawah, Bahasham, YAHAWASHI. I dare you to say you're completely compliant with Yahawah, Bahasham, YAHAWASHI. No, you're not. No, you're not. None of us are. Nobody's ready for a chariot ride. Right in this situation, you see what's going on. But when the Jews saw the multitudes, they were filled with envy and spake against those things which were spoken by Paul, contradicting and blaspheming. And Paul and Barnabas waxed bold and said, it was necessary that the word of Yahawah should first have been spoken to you. But seeing ye put it from you, the judge yourselves unworthy of everlasting life, lo, we turn to the Gentiles. We turn to who? The Hellenized. The Hellenized Israelites, the scattered. For so as much the Lord commanded us, saying, I have set thee to be a light of the Gentiles. Why? Because they were Hellenized, and just because you're doing a few things right, don't mean you got everything completely right. You got things right and accurate based on the timeline when the Father revealed that portion of prophecy that you took forward the correct way. Whoop-de-doo, you got more to do. Don't stop there. Correct. Keep correcting. Don't stop. And yeah, you're allowed to present a judgment in scriptures that backs your position only. Keep your fucking opinion out of it. Back through scriptures, correction, protection, and presentation. Correct through scriptures, plural, multitude. And then when you do it, before you get all wrapped up in it, check the beam in your own eye. Check the goddamn beam in your own eye. I got two beams in both my eyes, and I know my shit don't see right all the time. But I go to the Father, and I praise, worship, and pray that he has mercy on my wretched soul. As often as I can, that he will see favor in his eyes and present me a small piece of mercy in health, in wisdom and wealth, to present his truth and know that he's always in total control of everything in creation. Everybody doing everything. And anything you're going to get, if it ain't done in heaven, you ain't getting it here. And stop trying to pull this bullshit in the flesh here, in this fallen state, and try to drag it into the new covenant, new kingdom. You fucking idiots. You're not getting that. Most High is not going to have no dumbed down women and no dumbed down men in the new covenant, new kingdom. Not with all the laws written in their inward parts that's perfect. Not going to be messing around with the heathens. They're going to work for you. They're going to be in their position in the fields, doing servitude, whatever level of slavery, whatever they're going to be in. And the rulership will be perfect in order, and you're not going to do whatever you want to do, and especially with them. You're going to do what is ordered and ordained by YAHAWAH, Bahasham YAHAWASHI only. And if you got to fucking complain about it, you take it to the Most High. See what he said. Paul continuing. Then Paul and Barnabas waxed bold and said, it was necessary that the word of Yahweh should first have been spoken to you. Just like this here. But seeing ye put it from you and judge yourselves unworthy of everlasting life, lo, we turn to the Hellenized Gentiles. 47. For so hath the Lord commanded us, saying, I have set thee to be a light of the Gentiles, or the Hellenized, that thou shouldest be for salvation unto the ends of the earth. And when the Hellenized Gentiles heard this, they were glad and glorified the word of the Lord, YAHAWASHI, and as many as were ordained to eternal life believed. And the word of the Lord was published throughout all the region. And the Jews of the Israelites that were in the truth stirred up the devout and honorable women and the chief men of the city, and raised persecution against Paul and Barnabas, and expelled them out of their coast. But they shook off the dust of their feet against them, and came unto Iconium, and the disciples were filled with joy and with the Rawhacca, the Holy Spirit. So, yeah, they jumped on them, and they went up against them, and they kicked them out. But they don't care, just like I don't care. Father has me do this. I don't answer to nobody but Yahawah Bahasham Yahushai. I was introduced to the truth through the Apostles of the Great Millstone. And then as I learned to crawl and learn from them, and learn to walk and still learn from them, and now I'm learning to run, and the Spirit has said, I got you and I'm taking over. And you're going to say what I tell you to say from Yahawah Bahasham Yahushai on activities of his people. And I am not anybody's above anybody. Never will ever claim it. I don't claim any status. Servant only. Now I want to go to Isaiah 49:6 for a minute, because that's what the Father told me to go to through YAHAWASHI. Isaiah 49. Dealing with the salvation riches of the end of the earth, clearly. Okay. I'm just going to go down to 6. Matter of fact, I will go up a little bit further. Start at the top, and I'll go down. Isaiah 49. You with me? Listen, O isles, unto me, and hearken ye people from far. Yahweh hath called me from the womb. That's how I feel. From the bowels of my mother hath he made mention of my name. And he hath made my mouth like a sharp sword. In the shadow of his hand hath he hid me, and made me a polished shaft. In his quiver hath he hid me. This is how I feel. He gave it to me. And said unto me, thou art my servant. That's why he named me Obadiah, servant of Yahweh. O Israel, in whom I will be glorified. Put me through the tribe of Israel, the northern kingdom. And said unto me, thou art my servant, O Israel, in whom I will be glorified. Then I said, I have labored in vain. I have spent my strength for naught, and in vain. Yet surely my judgment is with Yahweh, and my work with my power, with my God. And now saith Yahweh, that formed me from the womb to be his servant, to bring Jacob again to him. Though Israel be not gathered, yet shall I be glorious in the eyes of Yahweh, and my power shall be my strength. And he said, it is a light thing that thou shouldest be my servant, to raise up the tribes of Jacob, and to restore the preserved of Israel. I will also give thee for a light to the Hellenized Gentiles, of course, that thou mayest be my salvation unto the end of the earth. Thus saith Yahweh, the Redeemer of Israel, and his Holy One, to him whom man despiseth, to him whom the nation abhorreth, and to a servant of rulers, kings shall see and arise, princes also shall worship, because of Yahweh that is faithful, and the Holy One of Israel, and he shall choose thee. Thus say Yahweh, in an acceptable time I have heard thee. You hear that? In an acceptable time, he says he's heard thee. Right? And in a day of salvation have I helped thee, and I will preserve thee, and give thee for a covenant of the people, to establish the earth, to cause to inherit the desolate heritages. That's definitely a prologue of sending us forward, certain of us, to do all of what we are to do. Because we have to deal with the scattered. And that's what the understanding should be towards where we're going with the interpretations that they've given us of the New Testament through the Septuagint, that can confuse so many. And why are they confused? Well, primarily because they're in the land of their captivity, and the language that they have is exactly what they're going to use to communicate. Because the Father said that they would remember themselves in the land of their captivity, right? And because they will remember themselves, you have to become a clue solver to the level where you can understand why you're going through what you're going through. Okay, like for instance, we are a stiff-necked people. I'm going to go to Baruch, okay? For I knew that they would not hear me because it is a stiff-necked people, but in the land of their captivity. We're going to get there, and we're going to read it. So that's what we're going to do right now, because we need to. You know, it's imperative that we do, and we have that understanding. But it's a spiritual level of blockage that's on our people, and it has to be that way. Baruch chapter 2 verse 30 in the Apocrypha, right? Well, yeah, in the King James. For I knew that they would not hear me, because it is a stiff-necked people, but in the land of their captivity they shall remember themselves. You see? Did you hear that? Now, knowing this, okay, let me see. Make sure I get there. Chapter 2. I charge you and challenge you to read Baruch chapter 2, because it has some very informative information that I think will be beneficial towards your growth, spiritual growth. Course 230 is where we went, but I want to go down here for a minute because I want to see something. Father had me take a look. See, this is you really want to read Baruch chapter 2, chapter 2 in totality. I'm just going to pick up a few precepts here for 30, because it's important that I do it. Father's got on my, he's welled up my spirit in order to do this. Okay, I'm going to read this part. I'm going to start at 23. Baruch chapter 2, starting at 23. I will cause to cease out of the cities of Judah and from without Jerusalem the voice of mirth. You hear that? This is what he's doing now. You hear that, right? In spite of everything that people think they're on point and they're locked in and rooted in the Most High, listen to this. I will cause to cease out of the cities of Judah and from without Jerusalem the voice of mirth and the voice of joy, the voice of the bridegroom and the voice of the bride, and the whole land shall be desolate of inhabitants. But we would not hearken unto thy voice to serve the king of Babylon. Therefore haste thou made good the words that thou spakest by the servants, the prophets. See, the prophets have been out on the streets and highways and byways, and they've been telling you the whole time that this about the king of Babylon. They're telling you not to serve him. They're saying here that it speaketh by the servants and the prophets, namely that the bones of our kings and the bones of our fathers should be taken out of their place. Remember the dry bones? You see what I'm saying? He's telling you, because he said, but we would not hearken unto thy voice to serve the king of Babylon. Therefore hast thou made good the words that thou speakest by the servants, the prophets, namely that the bones of our kings and the bones of our fathers should be taken out of their place. 25. And lo, they are cast out to the heat of the day and the frost of the night, and they dried in great miseries by famine, by sword, and by pestilence. You see these dry bones, right? And the house which is called by thy name hast thou laid waste, as it is to be seen this day, for the wickedness of the house of Israel and the house of Judah. O Lord, our power, thou hast dealt with us after all thy goodness and according to all that great mercy of thine. 28. As thou speakest by thy servant Moses in the day when thou didst command him to write the law before the children of Israel, saying, If ye will not hear my voice, surely this very great multitude shall be turned into a small number among the nations where I will scatter them. Did you hear that? Okay. 30, for I knew that they would not hear me because it is a stiff-necked people, but in the land of their captivity they shall remember themselves and shall know that I am the Lord their power, for I will give them a heart and ears to hear. See? And they shall praise and worship me in the land of their captivity and think upon my name, the real name, YAHAWAH, Bahasham YAHAWASHI, right? And return from their stiff neck, from their wicked deeds, for they shall remember the way of their fathers, which sinned before the Lord, which is you're doing it right now. And I will bring them again into the land which I promised with an oath unto their fathers, Abraham, Isaac, and Jacob, and they shall be lords of it, and I will increase them, and they shall not be diminished. 35, and I will make an everlasting covenant with them to be their power, their God, and they shall be my people, and I will no more drive my people of Israel, didn't say the rest of the nations, of Israel out of the land that I have given them. See, I had to give you that because it was important. And he told me to bring it out. So I did. Okay? Now, we took care of that. We got to go to 1 Peter. So go with me. I'm going into the New Testament. We're getting close. We're almost done. I know y'all are like, oh, he takes so long. He keep doing so much. What else you got to do? I mean, most of you ain't got a job. You ain't doing nothing. You're sitting back watching the boob tube, and the boob tube is watching you. So what else do you have to do? You worried about, I got to make paper. I got to make paper. Yeah, well, you want to make the paper. Give unto Caesar what belongs to Caesar. Who faces on the paper? It ain't yours. This ain't the king of Zamunda. This ain't coming to America. You don't have no money that's on your face on the money. And the money they got the faces that's on it ain't even worth the money that ain't even worth the faces in the money or the money and the faces is on. And pretty soon it's going to be worth nothing. So then what are you going to be able to do? What are you prepared for? Stop making me digress. 1 Peter 1. 1 Peter 1. 1 and 2. Peter, an apostle to Yahawashi HaMashiach, to the strangers scattered throughout Pontus, Galatia, Cappadocia, Asia, and Bithynia. Okay? Elect. Hello? According to the foreknowledge of Yahweh the Father through sanctification of the Spirit unto obedience. Are you part of that? Are you sanctified unto the spirit of obedience? No, you're not. Because you hate people. You hate, I hate Jake. Oh, I hate the nigger woman. Oh, I hate the purple people. What kind of sanctification is that? Oh, we hate this, we hate that. Yeah, well, you're allowed to hate because the Most High hate. You hate who the Most High hates. But you know what? You got to have some discipline. Elect according to the foreknowledge of Yahweh the Father through sanctification of the Spirit unto obedience and sprinkling of the blood of Yahweh HaMashiach. Grace unto you and peace be multiplied. Blessed be the power of our Father and our Lord Yahweh HaMashiach, which according to his abundant mercy hath begotten us again unto a lively hope by the resurrection of Yahweh HaMashiach from the dead, who the Father brought up, to an inheritance incorruptible and undefiled and faded not away, reserved in heaven for you, who are kept by the power of Yahweh through faith unto salvation, ready to be revealed in the last time. Right now, what you're dealing with. Okay? Now we're going to 2 Peter 2. 2 Peter 2. Of course, the rise of the false apostles. How many of them are out there like that? Get in line. You know who you are. This is clearly what we're dealing with right now in this dispensational period, this eonic period. Second Peter chapter 2. But there were false prophets also among the people, even as there shall be false teachers among you, who privily shall bring in damnable heresies, even denying the Lord that brought them, and bringing upon themselves swift destruction. Well, why is it swift destruction? Well, you know why. Because the Father predestined them to be that way. Okay? And many shall follow their pernicious ways, by reason of whom the way of truth shall be evil spoken of. Now, when they do this, remember, don't get lost in the spiritual mature translation. The Father told you that if there's a false prophet, the deceived and the deceiver are his. False prophets have a purpose. They have to fulfill their part of prophecy. If you're pissed off at them, fine. Grow up and get over it. Who put them in that position? Not you, and they didn't do it by themselves. The Most High did it. Clearly. Do you know it? 3, and though covetousness shall they with fringed words make merchandise of you, which everybody's doing, whose judgment now of a long time lingereth not, and their damnation slumbereth not, because they're predestined to go through everything they're going to go through. Let them go through it. Stop complaining about it. For if Yahawah spared not the angels that sinned, but cast them down to hell, and delivered them into chains of darkness to be reserved unto judgment. See? Chains of darkness. You see the bodies we're in? Yeah, we're cast down. We're in a fallen state. This ain't talking about his angels in heaven who are in perfect order and can't go out of order. He's talking about us who are under the badge and label of Israelites. But if you can't receive it, then you're blocked. 5, and spared not the old world, but saved Noah and 8 persons, a preacher of righteousness, bringing in a flood upon the world of the ungodly. 6, and turning the cities of Sodom and Gomorrah into ashes, condemning them with an overflow, making them an example unto those that after should live ungodly. 7, and delivered just Lot, vexed with the filthy conversation of the wicked. 8, for that righteous man dwelling among them, in seeing and hearing, vexed his righteous soul from day to day with their unlawful deeds. 9, the Lord knoweth how to deliver the godly out of temptation, and to reserve the unjust unto the day of judgment to be punished. He's already predetermined that and done it. You just got to pick up the clues so you can go through it. That's all he's saying. 10, but chiefly them that walk after the flesh in the lust of uncleanness. Now let's park there for a minute. But chiefly, but first now, them that walk after the flesh in the lust of uncleanness. Are you interested in how many women you can have here in the flesh right now, and lustfully hoping that you can carry that over into the new kingdom so that you can participate in the same way that you participate here with a whole bunch of women? Is this a major priority for you going into the new covenant and the new kingdom? Or is your mindset set on salvation in the heavenly kingdom for eternity, that you have to have the same level of unrighteous, unclean, lustful feeling about women here that you want to drag it over into the new covenant and new kingdom? And you ain't doing that. So what the hell is wrong with you? So is this your part? Is this what you into? But chiefly them that walk after the flesh in the lust of uncleanness and despise government, presumptuous, are they self-willed? Are you self-willed? Because that's what you want to drag into the new kingdom. They are not afraid to speak evil dignities. Why? Whereas angels, which are greater in power, hello, you ain't controlling them, and might bring not railing accusations against them before the Lord, but these as natural brute beasts, which is what you act like. If you like this fallen kingdom, if you like this fallen state, if you like these fallen properties and practices and processes, and you want to bring them over into the new covenant, new kingdom, you're a fucking brute beast. And you ain't getting that. Made to be taken and destroyed, speak evil of the things that they understand not. So they'll jump all over me and say, yeah, right. And shall utterly perish in their own corruption, and shall receive the reward of the unrighteous, as they that count it pleasure to riot in the daytime, spots that they are a blemish, sporting themselves with their own deceivings while they feast with you. Yeah, brother, we gonna be good. We gonna have the power and do whatever the hell we want. Dumbasses. Having eyes full of adultery, that they cannot cease from sin, beguiling unstable souls, and heart that they have exercised with covetous practices, cursed children, which have forsaken the right way and are gone astray, even led astray, following the way of Balaam, the son of Bosor, who loved the wages of the unrighteousness, but was rebuked for his iniquity. The dumbass speaking with man's voice forbid the madness of the prophet. So is that where you are? You Balaam? Most High told your ass what you gonna do because he predestined everything, but you gonna tell him you gonna have something else because that's what you want. Shut up. These are wells without water, clouds that are carried with a tempest, to whom the midst of darkness is reserved forever. For when they speak great swelling words of vanity, they allure through the lust of the flesh, through much wantonness, those that were clean escape from them whom live in error, while they promise them liberty. Oh yeah, you gonna get all you want, you gonna have 1,000, you gonna have, yeah, right. Promise them liberty. They themselves are the servants of corruption, for of whom a man is overcome, of the same is he brought to bondage. For if after they have escaped the pollutions of the world through the knowledge of the Lord and Savior YAHAWASHI, they are again entangled therein and overcome, the latter end is worse than them than in the beginning. For it had been better for them not to have known the way of righteousness than after they have known it to turn from the holy commandment delivered unto them. But it has happened unto them according to the true proverb, the dog is turned to his own vomit again, and the sow that was washed in her own wallow in the mire. Tell me what line you're in. Are you in that line? Do you line up with that? Do you despise the way the Father is doing everything with his creation? Do you have a problem with that? Do you have a problem that there's certain things that you're not going to get control of and not going to do? And stop making up shit? Because it make you feel good? And keeping people in order that are with you? You better get that shit straight because you messed up. All right, I'm just bringing out activity. I'm I'm expounding on the activity because that's what the Father told me to do. Expound on the activity. If you convicted, if you feel vexed, are you doing that stuff? Are you mirroring the Mashiach, or are you doing this other stuff? What are you doing? The stuff that I'm talking about that's not in order, YAHAWASHI don't be doing that. He don't be calling his women those names. He don't be bugging out on the bug outs. You ain't mirroring the Mashiach. If you are, you won't. If you are, then this don't. If you mirror the Mashiach, this don't bother you because you're not doing this. But if you upset with the way the Most High doing his creation and finishing this prophetic timeline and bugging out who he's bugging out and telling you to stop saying stuff about the women who gonna be with you in the kingdom, cleaned up and reproach removed, and he ain't removing no reproach off of no heathens because they're gonna stay heathens. If you got a problem with that because he ain't doing that for you, you better take it up with him. Because who's getting saved at the end? What Acts 2. Acts 2:21. And it shall come to pass that whosoever shall call on the name of the Lord shall be saved. What is that name? YAHAWAH. Bahasham YAHAWASHI. Ye men, 22. Ye men of Israel. Oh, I thought it was for the whole world. Because, God created all creatures and everybody. But it says, ye men of Israel, hear these words. You know the rest. Going to Romans. Romans 10. The word of faith brings salvation. Nothing else. Not what you add in it, not what you lust for having because you didn't get it here in this fallen state. So I got to get it over there. I'm going to drag it in with me. I'm going to drag me a whole bunch of women in with me. I'm going to drag them all in with me when I go to the new covenant. Yep. Dumbass. No, you ain't. Who can remove reproach? Can you? I can't remove reproach off of nobody. I can't remove reproach off of our own Hebrew Israelite women, and I can't remove reproach off of no other nation of women or men. I can't remove anybody's reproach. Hell, I can't remove reproach off myself. Only Yahawah Bahasham YAHAWASHI can remove reproach. And he's only removing reproach off of Israelites. He ain't moving no reproach off of no other nations. They're made that way, and they're going to stay that way. And you can't pull and lay on some reproach when you get the new bodies. Sorry, no. And it reads, Romans chapter 10, verse 1. Brethren, my heart's desire and prayer to Yahawah of Israel is that they might be saved. Is that your prayer? For you, and not worried about the rest of the nations? For I bear them a record that they have a zeal for Yahawah, but not according to knowledge. For they being ignorant of Yahawah's righteousness. See, what does that mean? How are you ignorant of his righteousness? You know, everything in heaven is in perfect order. So, on earth as it is in heaven. So, the processes of heaven that are in perfect order are going to be applied here on earth when the new covenant, new kingdom is. And they have to be the same. So if they ain't doing it there, you're not going to do it here. Can't you get that? No matter what kind of body you're in. You ain't doing it like this fallen state. You got to get this and stop being so goddamn spiritually blocked. got a zeal for, but not according to knowledge. For they being ignorant of Yahweh's righteousness and going about to establish their own righteousness, have not submitted themselves unto the righteousness of Yahweh. For Hamashiach is the end of the law for righteousness to everyone that believeth. Why is he the end of the law? He's the end of the law, meaning he is the fulfillment. And the fulfillment means that he is the spirit of prophecy, which means that what's going on in heaven is going to be going on here. He's going to be sitting at the head of it. You got King David, 144,000 royal citizens, all that of the light, and the rest of the heathens. They ain't dealing with us like that. For Moses describeth the righteousness which is of the law, that the man which doeth those things shall live in them. But the righteousness which is of faith speaketh on this wise, say not to thine heart, who shall ascend into heaven? Question. That is to bring Hamashiach down from above. Or who who shall descend into deep? That is to bring up Hamashiach from the dead. YAHAWASHI. But what saith it? Question. The word is nigh thee, even in thy mouth and in thy heart. That is the word of faith, which is what we preach. That if thou shalt confess with thy mouth that Lord YAHAWASHI, and shall believe in thy heart that Yahweh hath raised him from the dead, thou shalt be saved. See, you have to do what? Confess that YAHAWASHI is the Lord and believe in your heart. For with the heart man believeth unto righteousness, and with the mouth confession is made unto salvation. For the scripture saith, whosoever believeth on him shall not be ashamed. 12, for there is no difference between the Israelite who is circumcised, that's why it says Jew there, and the Greek, which is the Hellenized Israelite that was lost and being brought back into the truth. Do you understand? That is not saying that, oh, only everybody in the world is either Jew or Greek. That's stupid, because that's not it. That's why it's supposed to be here. The Septuagint put that in there, but the Paleo-Hebrew, and Hebrew is going to say the circumcised Israelite, Hebrew Israelite, and the lost Hellenized Hebrew Israelite. That's what those things. For the same Lord over all is rich unto all that call upon him. 13. For whosoever shall call upon the name of the Lord shall be saved. Now you have to know the name. And it's not the names that they come up with. It's only Yahweh and YAHAWASHI. How then shall they call upon him whom they have not believed? Question. And how shall they believe in him whom they have not heard? Question. And how shall they hear without a preacher, someone who's giving them the right truth? And how shall they preach except they be sent? Now, as it is written, how beautiful are the feet of them that preach the gospel of peace and bring glad tidings of good things. But they have not all obeyed the gospel, right? They haven't, because they've been saying stuff that they can't prove within the gospel. That shows they're not obeying the gospel. Stop saying stuff that you can't prove. Okay? But they have not all obeyed the gospel. For Elias saith, Lord, who hath believed our report? So then faith cometh by hearing, and hearing by the word of Yahweh. But I say, have they not heard? See, clue solvers, are they? Yes, verily, their sound went into all the earth, and their words unto the ends of the world. But I say, did not Israel know? Question. First Moses saith, I will provoke you to jealousy by them that are no people, which is the Hellenized, scattered, don't know they are Grecian people. And by a foolish nation I will anger you. Just like we have right here in the land of this land of the shadow of death, the valley of the shadow of death. But Elias is very bold and saith, I was found in them that sought me not. I was made manifest unto them that asked not after me. But to Israel he saith, all day long I have searched for my hands unto a disobedient and gainsaying people. Is that not true? That's so very true. Gainsaying people. That was Acts chapter 2. And we got Romans 10 already. So I got to get Romans, what, 3? I mean, Shlaki. No. Yeah, that was Romans. Romans 10 through 1 through 21. Shlaki. Yeah, I got to go back to Romans. I got 3. Almost done. About my average. Romans chapter 3, verse. Romans chapter 3, verse 1. All the world is guilty. No doubt. What advantage then hath the Israelite, this says the Jew here, or what profit is there of circumcision? Much every way, chiefly because that unto them were committed the oracles of Yahawah. For what if some did not believe? Question, shall their unbelief make faith of Yahawah without effect? Yahawah forbid. Yea, let Yahawah be true, but every man a liar. As it is written, thou shalt, that thou mightest be justified in thy sayings, and mightest overcome when thou art judged. But if our righteousness command the righteousness of Yahawah, what shall we say? Question, is Yahawah unrighteous who taketh vengeance? Question, I speak as a man. Yahawah forbid, for then how shall Yahawah judge the world? For if the truth of Yahawah hath more abound through my lie unto his glory, why yet am I also judged as a sinner? And not rather as we be slanderous reported, and as some affirm that we say, let us do evil and good may come, whose damnation is just. Remember? And of course, 9. What then? Are we better than they? No, in no wise, for we have before proved both Israelites and Hellenized Gentiles that they are all under sin. And you can read that in Psalms 14, 1 through 3 and 53, 1 through 4. Look it up. Okay? As it is written, there is none righteous, no, not one. There is none that understandeth, there is none that seeketh after Yahawah. They are all gone out of the way. They are together become unprofitable. There is none that doeth good, no, not one. Their throat is an open sepulchre. With their tongues they have used deceit, and poison of asp is under their lips, whose mouth is full of cursing and bitterness. Their feet are swift to shed blood. Destruction and misery are in their ways, and their way of peace have they not known. There is none, there is no fear of Yahawah before their eyes. Now we know that what things soever the law saith, it saith to them who are under the law, the curse of the law, of course, that every mouth may be stopped, and all the world may become guilty before Yahawah. Therefore, by the deeds of the law, there shall no flesh be justified in his sight, for by the law is knowledge of sin. Okay? So we had to get that in so that you know it. All right, now we're going to, we just about done here in a few minutes. We got that. We got Romans. We got Acts. We got that. We got that. We got that. Yep. I believe we got it. Yes, we did. Okay, let me finish this and we'll be done. All right. Now, the justification, obviously, of faith is very important because the just is supposed to live by faith. Okay, that's what we're supposed to do. And you can pray for more faith, but you can't pray for more grace. And you can pray for justice, but justice won't come to you unless you have the faith. And then you have to stand on it. So let's read this. Justification. 20:21. But now the righteousness of Yahawah without the law is manifest, being witnessed by the law and the prophets. So when the prophets on the highways and byways and the streets and the like, when they start breaking down the truth to you and telling you things that are coming from the scriptures, For you to buck up against them, it shows that you don't understand the faith and the justice of faith. And because you don't understand that, you are in a spiritual block capacity. Now, you can pray for YAHAWASHI to relieve or take the scales off your eyes to a degree, because see, this is what happened with Paul. Think about it. Paul was, he's a Pharisee, and he knew what the disciples in the that were traveling with Yahushua HaMashiach knew. He knew more than them, actually, because he knew the law from way back in history, because he learned it at Gamaliel, and he was trying to understand why he didn't have the power in the spirit at the time. It was within him, but it just hadn't been welled up in him yet. He was trying to understand why he couldn't perform the miracles and the things that they were doing. He was well aware of it, because he's on his way to Damascus to get lawfully and start getting on them, you know, and he wanted to figure out why he couldn't do these things. It wasn't time yet for him to be awakened. So in knowing justification of faith, he had a measure of faith because it needed to be, the spark needed to be welled up in him, okay? So on the way to Damascus, he was taken off the horse by YAHAWASHI. You know the scripture in Acts 26 when he talks about, Saul, Saul, why dost thou persecute? I am YAHAWASHI. He didn't say Jesus, but that's what they put in there. It is hard for thee to kick against the pricks. And so he's kicking against the truth and the law. He's kicking against the righteousness of the truth. And he's being informed once he is struck down and his sight is taken from him. So that's why YAHAWASHI is saying, eyes to see and ears to hear. Now his hearing was still good, but his vision was taken from him for a moment so that he could focus on what he was hearing. You understand? So when his sight was taken, it wasn't completely taken, but he put scales on his eyes to the degree where he could barely see. He was glaucomized. He was glaucoma. He had glaucomas, right? And he was scaled to that degree, but he could hear well. And so, who art thou, Lord? And he told him, I am YAHAWASHI. It's harder for you to kick against the pricks. So then he told him eventually that he was a chosen vessel unto him and that he was going to send him into Damascus, to Ananias. And then he would lead him into the truth and help him with his vision, okay? So this is also happening to so many of us in terms of the capacity of who we are and what we're doing and what we're predestined to do. Eventually, everybody is operating in a militant rebel type capacity. All of us, we're in a militant rebel type capacity because we're not completely compliant with YAHAWASHI HaMashiach. We're not completely compliant. And if you say that you are completely compliant with YAHAWASHI and with YAHAWASHI HaMashiach as our example, our mirror example, prove it. But you can't, because we're not completely compliant with YAHAWASHI. You have issues, we have issues with our own people. Women, men, children. We have major issues with them. And he didn't have any issues with them in terms of the way he was directing them. He turned over the money tables. I got you. Yeah. He put miracles on people who had vexations and drew out demons and got them out. That was part of the ministry. But how did he treat creation overall? Think about it. How did YAHAWASHI HaMashiach treat creation overall? He was in complete compliance with that. We're not. So our righteousness, but now the righteousness of Yahweh without the law is manifest, being witnessed by the law and the prophets. Even the righteousness of Yahweh, which is by faith in YAHAWASHI HaMashiach unto all and upon all them that believe, for there is no difference. And all of them that believe have to be the ones that can perceive and receive this understanding of the truth. If you got made up doctrines of belief systems like Christianity and all the rest of the ones around the world, this doesn't apply because you can't receive it. You see? For all have sinned and come short of the glory of Yahweh. We're in a fallen state. There's no possible way that you can't have fallen and been fallen short of the glory of Yahweh, because this ain't cleaned up yet. being justified freely by his grace, see, through the redemption of that is in Hamashiach YAHAWASHI, right? Whom Yahweh has set forth to be a propitiation through faith in his blood. Now, that's mean past sins, not what you're doing now until you can repent, if it's repentable, to declare his righteousness for the remission of sins that are past. You see that? You'll need to read that. Through the forbearance of Yahweh, to declare, I say, at this time his righteousness, that he might be just and the justifier of whom which believeth in YAHAWASHI. Now, that's a qualifier, but it's a clue-based qualifier. You understand? 27. Where is boasting then? Question, where is it? Why are you boasting and saying you got it all, but everybody else is fucked up? That's not correct. Because you know none of us are in total compliance. None of us are ready for chariot pickup and the chariot ride right now. Nope, you're not. It is excluded. But what law of works? Question, nay, but by the law of faith. Why is it the law of faith? Because you can ask for more faith and operate. You can praise, worship, and pray for more faith. Therefore, we conclude that a man is justified by faith without the deeds of the law. Why? Because the deeds of the law only apply to those that are under the covenant, not the rest of the world. They're not under the law. So the curse of the law and the law in general is on them full-fledged. But on you, the curse of the law can be removed under repentance and faith and doing the truth. It is he the power of God. It is he God of the Jews only. Who? Whoa, time out. It is he God of the Israelites only. Is he not also the God? Is he not also of the Hellenized, lost, diaspora, Gentiles, not the regular so-called indigenous people who are not under the covenant, not them. Just don't apply to them. This ain't Gentiles speaking of them. Yes, of the Gentiles also, the Hellenized Hebrew Israelites, because this word and this truth is only for them. The rest of the nations, they're not under the covenants. They were not given the law. Okay? And I can give you scripture for it. Right? Also, seeing it is one power, one God, which shall justify the circumcision by faith and uncircumcision through faith, do we then make void the law through faith? God forbid. Yea, we establish the law. See? So you can't make it to the point where you can say to yourself, oh, well, everybody's saved through the Most High. You know, that's the way it is, you know. No, that's not true. Everybody's not. Because if the Most High made it for everyone, he would have said it specifically. Okay? He would have said it. And he didn't say that. Right? He did not say that. What do I want? And then I got to finish up. Let's see, is this it? We're almost out, folks. Bear with me. We gotta find something else real quick. as I said, the Most High, he's only given his covenant and his word to his chosen people. He hasn't given it to any other nation. And I have to pull it just so that you know. So I'm going to Psalms 147, and I'm going to read it. Psalms 147 and 19. He showeth his word unto Jacob. That's Israel, right? Right? His statutes and his judgments unto Israel. 20. He hath not dealt so with any nation. And as for his judgments, they have not known them. Praise ye Yahawah, the Lord. Call Yahawah, Bahasham, Yahawashi, Bahasham, Qadash, the water, YAHAWAH, the water, YAHAWAH, Bahasham, Yahawashi, Shalaki, YAHAWAH, for my sins as I cry. Rawhacca, YAHAWAH, for your mercy all the time. Rawhacca, YAHAWAH, for a all the time. YAHAWAH, Bahasham, Yahawashi. Shalom, shalom. Hope you enjoyed the lesson.